Chapter 459. With contempt and ridicule for Qi Guanyin, the blazing angel quietly returned to Ming province and circled in the air like a night owl. But soon, it realized that something was wrong. His beloved wife was kidnapped by thieves. As the great general of Jinzhou and the most powerful person in Ming province, Qi Guanyin should be furious at this moment. He should be rushing back home, scolding and even severely punishing the servants and guards who neglected their duties. He should be interrogating them and even ordering the soldiers to search the entire city. The blazing angel looked down at Huqing. Large groups of people were still being mobilized, but there were no disturbances. There was also no large-scale blockade or search. It looked like a military immobilization. That's not right. Qi Guanyin lost his wife. Why wasn't he worried at all? It recalled Wang Shi's solemn vow that the general's residence will definitely be in chaos and my husband will be anxious. But now, it seemed that there were no signs of this at all. The huge general's residence was dark and only a few places had lights on. The bedroom that was engulfed by the explosion and flames was also casually placed there after the flames were extinguished. It was as if nothing had happened. The blazing angel was stunned for a moment. Then, it thought hard and nodded thoughtfully. It seemed that the relationship between husband and wife was not as strong as Wang Shi thought. Although it was not familiar with Wang Shi before, it could tell from the other party's vicious plan today that she was undoubtedly a ruthless woman. Usually at home, she must be very good at controlling her husband. She was very cunning, very scheming, very jealous, and very violent. She was like a lion from Hedong. In the future, when historians recorded Qi Guanyin's life, they would definitely mention his first wife. And this Wang Shi would most likely be described as arrogant. This kind of fierce woman would definitely not allow her husband to take concubines. Even if she said a few words to her maids, she would definitely be beaten. This Qi Guanyin was not a husband and did not have the guts to divorce his wife. It really did not know how he had survived all these years. And now, in the middle of the night, his wife was kidnapped by a strong man and her whereabouts were unknown. This Qi Guanyin, might be anxious on the surface, but in his heart he was happy. Blazing angel thought from another perspective and connected the dots. She immediately guessed Qi Guanyin's current state of mind. She thought to herself, this is not good. Clearly, Madame Wang has overestimated her charm, overestimated the relationship between husband and wife, overestimated Qi Guanyin's masochism, so much so that she completely misjudged her husband's actions. As the saying goes, there are three great joys in life: promotion, riches, and the death of one's wife. Qi Guanyin was an extremely high official with power over a province. Promotion and riches were nothing difficult for him. He occupied the top two joys all year round. However, the third one was a sorrow that flowed against the current and turned into a river. After suffering for who knows how many years, there was finally a glimmer of hope for the third joy. How could he care about his wife, who was kidnapped? He couldn't wait for the kidnappers to kill the hostage. Not good, this is really not good. This pair of husband and wife appeared to be united on the surface, but were actually divided at heart. Both of them were looking forward to the death of the other. They were truly cunning, blazing angel cursed in its heart. It couldn't help but criticize the corruption and debauchery of the feudal bureaucracy in its heart. Then it became a little anxious. Qi Guanyin was so unscrupulous. Madame Wang would definitely gnash her teeth and let him die. However, if this General Qi didn't cooperate and fought alone, he definitely wouldn't be a match for the two blazing angels and Sun Lang working together. With such a variable in the plan, it was indeed necessary for Qi Guanyin, who controlled the troops of a province, to take the lead and share the firepower for him. However, Qi Guanyin didn't seem to care about Madame Wang's life or death. He even hoped that his wife would die. What should it do? It thought hard for a while, then its eyes lit up. Got it. I can appear in public and then act a little fiercer, a little more arrogant, and even a little more lecherous. I can do my best to ridicule and threaten him, provoking Qi Guanyin's anger and uneasiness. After all, although he couldn't wait for his wife to die, he only hoped that his wife would die quietly, because as a high-ranking official, He also wanted face and reputation. Therefore, if I appear in front of his soldiers and say that his wife was kidnapped by me, then blackmail him with so many witnesses he can't just stand by and watch his wife die. Otherwise, he will be scolded to death by the court. Moreover, he definitely won't be willing to wear a green hat. In any case, as long as I lure him to Mingzhou, then put on a show with Madame Wang in front of him, everything will be fine. Yes, that's what I'll do. The quick-witted blazing angel felt that it was very good. After making up its mind, it turned around and rushed down the general's residence. It randomly grabbed a person and asked him where Qi Guanyin was. That person was a little stubborn. It wasn't until Blazing Angel used some tricks that he couldn't take it anymore and whispered that the general had already left the general's residence. He should have gone to the army camp in the inner city. Why did Qi Guanyin go to the army camp? The Blazing Angel was suspicious and casually threw that person to the side. That person lay on the ground and snorted twice. While it wasn't paying attention, he immediately turned around and rushed into the darkness, then began to shout. Blazing Angel looked at the other person's figure and sneered twice. It didn't stop him and let him go. In any case, he wanted to make a big deal out of this matter, so there was no need to keep it a secret or hide his tracks. While the guards of the general's residence were angrily cursing and chasing, the Blazing Angel laughed and rushed into the sky, heading straight for the army camp in Huqing. The place was very easy to recognize. At this moment, the sky was already dark, and only the fire in the army camp was bright. The flames were blazing, and there were constantly troops arriving and departing. War horses and carriages were constantly shuttling back and forth, carrying large amounts of military supplies slowly on the road. Qi Guanyin was still mobilizing the troops, but he forgot to ask Madame Wang what Qi Guanyin was doing. The Blazing Angel didn't have time to think carefully. It descended from the sky with the sound of the wind and flames, landing heavily in front of the army camp with a heavy boom. The guards were first shocked by the thing that fell from the sky. Then they raised their spears and shouted, "How dare you? Who dares to barge into the army camp?" The commotion was not small, and all the soldiers in the camp were shocked. A few of the generals in charge of patrolling the camp saw the meteor falling from the sky. Without saying a word, they immediately mobilized the troops under their command and shuttled back and forth. With the army camp as the center, 3 layers of long and short weapons, even light and heavy firearms, crossbows, and spears surrounded the camp from all sides. The Blazing Angel seemed to be unaware of all this. The fire in the camp shone on this iron armor that combined strength and beauty, reflecting the beauty of blood and slaughter. This powerful war weapon moved its wrist, and the sound of the hydraulic lever and transmission system operating was like a strange rhythm. It faced the army camp and shouted in a deep voice, "Qi Guanyin, come out. You know why I'm here." Qi Guanyin was sitting steadily in the tent, suppressing his longing and worry for his wife. According to the inexplicable request of the kidnappers, he mobilized the troops and tried to reach Mingzhou before dawn. Then, he heard the sound of the Blazing Angel descending. He saw the Iron Giant descending from the sky. He heard the rude shout. Even though Qi Guanyin had been educated and had a gentle and calm temperament, he was still a bit angry. Why the F***CK did another one come? His face was a bit gloomy. He slowly stood up and walked out of the tent, surrounded by the generals in the tent. He coldly looked at the Blazing Angel not far away. This armor did not look like the Lone Wanderer, nor the Death Messenger, so it could not be wrong. This was the 3rd Blazing Angel that the Death Messenger said. The Blazing Angel that came from the Kingdom of Lifefire to warn Courier, the Blazing Angel that planned the attack on the general's residence, and the Blazing Angel that kidnapped Ing Er. Although Qi Guanyin knew the origin of the other party, he could not say it in public. He did not know what this guy was here for, so he could only say coldly, "Are you the Flame Guardian from the Kingdom of Lifefire? This is my military camp, the tent of the Ming Province Army. You are a Flame Guardian, but you trespassed here. I will inform the Imperial Court and ask the Honglu Temple to come out and ask for an explanation from your country." The Blazing Angel let out a hoarse and cold laugh like a poisonous snake. He slowly said, "Why do you pretend to be confused? Not long ago, I kidnapped your wife. Don't you remember? Damn, is this guy sick in the head? Why does he have to come here and say this again? Didn't Courier come here already? Didn't we have an agreement? Why is he here again? To show off? Qi Guanyin almost cursed it out loud, and there was a commotion around him. The general's residence had already issued a gag order. So many soldiers did not know that the general's residence was attacked. Now that the bastard in front of him said it out loud, Qi Guanyin almost flew into a rage. He took a deep breath and said, "Nonsense. Before I left home, my wife was fine. You have the blazing angel armor, so you must have a high position in the kingdom of Life Fire. You can't just say things like that. I am the general of the Ming province. You kidnapped my wife. Do you want the two countries to go to war?" Fuck, I didn't guess wrong. This guy actually flatly denied it. He did not want to admit it at all. He did not want to save his wife at all. Sure enough, you want your evil wife to die for no reason, and then happily remarry and have children, right? You shameless, heartless man. But the blazing angel had seen through everything. He laughed. Before you left home, your bedroom was burned to the ground. I fired at least 50 rockets at the general's residence, and the fire was all put out. I personally took your wife and brother-in-law away. They're now tied up in the wilderness. They are frightened, cold, and hungry. You don't care? Or do you want to take the chance to divorce your wife? The blazing angel smiled, killing several birds with one stone. Letting your wife die for no reason will save you a lot of trouble. You won't be criticized by the censorate for abandoning your wife. It's just that Madame Wang has suffered. She was waiting for you to save her, but you cruelly abandoned her. TSK, TSK, TSK. She's now tied up in the wilderness and can't move at all. If any poisonous insects or snakes crawl around her. As it spoke, its tone became weird. Maybe we can even pass by a barbarian, a dirty villager, or a group of vulgar horse gang. Think about it. What will happen if these ugly and lowly people meet the noble and beautiful general's wife who can't move in the wild? Ha 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 ha. Yes, that's it. He said these things in front of these soldiers, and then reminded Qi Guanyin that he could not win just like this. He still had his face and reputation to worry about. Then, slowly, he would lead the spearhead to the Zhang residence and force him to lead the troops to Mingzhou. Then, he could put on a show and make him and Sun Lang become like fire and water. They would not stop until one of them was dead. The Blazing Angel's plan was very good. In fact, he had completely succeeded. Qi Guanyin was expressionless, but the murderous intent in his heart had soared to the extreme. No wonder Courier wanted to sell this bastard. No wonder Courier said that he did not like this guy. No wonder he was abandoned by Courier. He really deserves to be chopped. This son of a bitch. Originally, Qi Guanyin was still puzzled by the Blazing Angel's sudden appearance. But at this moment, his heart was completely filled with murderous intent. Thinking of the secret agreement he had with Courier, his murderous intent soared. This murderous intent was obvious and was seen through by the Blazing Angel at a glance. He wants to kill me. This Qi Guanyin is angry out of humiliation. I have hit the nail on the head. I have seen through his scheme. Just like this, the two of them stared at each other, not to be outdone, and each of them plotted their own schemes. Qi Guanyin was wondering if he should directly attack and kill this bastard on the spot. That way, he would have fulfilled his agreement with Courier, but the surrounding was not tight enough, and the preparations were not enough. It was hard to say if he could succeed in one strike. And now, he came here to spout nonsense. He did not know why, especially since Courier had already come here. He felt that it was very strange for him to come again. Should I negotiate with him in private? I keep feeling that I have overlooked something. The Blazing Angel was thinking that provoking Qi Guanyin's anger was more or less enough. Next, it was time to shift the hatred and shift the blame to the Zhang family. Just as the two of them made up their minds and decided to proceed with the next step of the conversation, an angry roar suddenly sounded from the soldiers surrounding the central tent. This red hair has gone too far. He is spouting nonsense and insulting the madam. He deserves to die. The voice shouted, "Brothers, kill this son of a bitch." This voice was full of energy and resounded in everyone's ears, causing them to be stunned. Then there was a deafening gunshot. Bang! The soldier saw a fierce spark explode from the huge armor, and then the blazing angel staggered to the left. On the battlefield of firearms, especially in the era of queuing up to be shot, the psychological quality of the soldiers was very high. Everyone had a mentality of blind obedience, especially in the tense atmosphere of the battlefield. If one of the soldiers who were waiting for orders and ready to shoot didn't have this psychological quality and shot first, it would basically lead the other soldiers to fire in advance, wasting a round of shooting. It was the same at this moment, especially when the soldiers heard the vulgar words of the blazing angel. At this moment, they were filled with anger and killing intent. This gunshot also became a signal. The army was a collective, and the thoughts of an individual were insignificant. No one cared who the person who spoke was. No one cared why a gun could hit such a huge, heavy armor to the point that it staggered. All the anger was ignited by this gunshot. Arrows were knocked, swords were unsheathed, axes were thrown, spears were thrown, locusts were thrown, spears were thrown, and meteors were thrown. The strong soldiers let out fierce roars. F***CK. Chapter 460. The situation immediately went out of control. The gunshot seemed to have detonated a barrel of gunpowder that had been stored for a long time. Accompanied by the roars of the soldiers, javelins, crossbows, short spears, flying axes, and even guns of different lengths were thrown at the blazing angel. The generals who were leading the troops broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, they didn't choose to encircle the enemy when they were arranging the troops. Instead, they folded their crane wings, and the two groups of troops spread out diagonally, not facing each other directly. Otherwise, this dubious long-range attack would have evolved into two groups of allies shooting at each other. They had just calmed down from the shock. Although they were still scared, they were also enveloped by the enthusiastic atmosphere. Screw it. Let's fight first and talk later. The military equipment of the Imperium was different from that of other countries. The most powerful individual long-range weapons were not guns, crossbows, or bows, but flying axes and javelins. After all, the power of guns and cannons depended on the amount of ammunition and the design of the gun. The power of bows and crossbows was limited by the strength of the materials used. The power of throwing weapons, such as javelins and axes, usually depended on how strong the user was. These warriors of the Imperium, who had been training their strength since they were young, had already surpassed the concept of mortals. For them, the most effective means of attack in a battle was still the most primitive way of killing with kinetic energy. It was a bit like returning to the basics. For example, in the Heaven's Origin battlefield, there were often fierce generals who acted as throwers. The dozens of bodyguards beside them did not need to do anything. Each of them carried a large bag of javelins of different lengths and provided ammunition for the general. After a great battle, the ground would be covered with sky demon skewers, the kind that could be hung on the wall or grilled on a rack. Therefore, military equipment still had to be adapted to local conditions. The Imperium attached great importance to the establishment of long-range throwing troops. The military imperial examination would also specifically examine this subject, and its importance was even higher than that of archery. Throwing games were also a form of entertainment that everyone, from the nobles to the commoners, liked to play. Even the Ming province army, which valued guns and handguns more, maintained a considerable number of throwing troops. After all, this kind of combat method and technique had been tested by time and the Sky Demon. It was proven to be an extremely effective and powerful combat method. Regardless of whether the enemy was a human or a Sky Demon, a round of heavy spear throwing could pin them to the ground. Basically, there was no enemy that a round of spear throwing could not take care of. If there was, then another round would be thrown. We don't care whether the reliance on throwing tactics will become an obstacle to Hudu's military reform. In any case, in the current situation, this tactic is extremely effective. After several generals joined in the attack, the threat of the various open and hidden weapons thrown by them to the blazing angels rose sharply. There was a wide open space in front of the main tent for the generals to inspect the soldiers and lecture the generals. At this moment, the blazing angels stood in the middle of it like they had poked a hornet's nest. From the first gunshot to the full-scale attack, it only took 7 or 8 seconds. The barrage of bullets drowned the blazing angels like water splashing water. All kinds of heavy throwing weapons created sparks of various sizes on the sturdy, blazing angel's armor. For a moment, there were chaotic sounds. The blazing angel was dumbfounded. In fact, with its combat experience and the strength of the blazing angel armor, it should have reacted the moment an attack was launched and counterattacked immediately. However, it was unknown where this sneak attack came from, but it actually staggered along with its armor. This was the reason why it was so dumbfounded. The sensing of the bullet point and the report from the support Holy Soul proved that it was a normal caliber bullet. What a joke. Why is it as powerful as an anti-material heavy cannon? And the trajectory of the bullet is so strange. The blazing angels were stunned by this extremely abnormal thing for a moment. Then, the storm-like attacks of the army came at them, making the blazing angels who came out of nowhere enjoy the treatment of an elite sky demon. The spears and axes thrown by the elites of the army were a great threat. Their power was not inferior to the anti-material heavy cannons of the Lihua nation. Hearing the warning from the support Holy Soul, the blazing angels was shocked and furious. They roared, and the weapon modules all over their body popped out. "Qi Guanyin, do you really not want your wife's life?" As they said that, the blazing angels made up their minds. They would kill a group of people first regardless of the consequences. After all, they had allured Qi Guanyin to fight with Sun Lang and expand their hatred here. But before it could open fire, another gunshot rang out, and a strange shriek came from a wind. It was a small caliber pistol bullet, but its power was extraordinarily great. This phenomenon completely violated the laws of physics, and it hit the blazing angel's helmet, causing it to lean back again. It let out a sullen roar, and the 2 3-barreled heavy machine guns in its hands spewed out long tongues of fire. But this army was made up of the elites under Qi Guanyin's command. They had imported firearms from the West. Their neighbor was the Lihua nation, so they learned from the Lihua nation. Their imaginary enemy was also the Lihua nation. Not only did they learn how the Russians fought, they also studied how to defend against this kind of warfare. They also combined it with the actual situation of the Hutu Empire. Seeing that the blazing angels raised their machine guns, the front row of shield men had already erected a shield wall. When the bullets hit the heavy shields, loud noises were heard. However, the military standard of the Hutu Empire represented the pinnacle of the cold weapons era. Through special forging methods and using special steel, the shields easily blocked the impact of the machine gun bullets. The blazing angel sneered and shook her right wrist. A grenade launcher popped out from under the arm guard. What use is a shield? But their smile disappeared immediately, because the moment the grenade catapult popped out, they felt their right hand sink. They looked down and saw a short spear directly inserted into the grenade launcher. Damn it, these bastards. The moment they were stunned was seized by the elites of the Empire. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the barrels of the 2 3-barreled heavy machine guns were hit by 2 arrows. The muzzles were directly broken by the powerful arrows, and the arrowheads were deeply embedded. The blazing angels were furious. They looked up and saw that several archers with longbows and arrows on their backs had quietly slid down from the trees. The consecutive failures made them so angry that they laughed. They put away the heavy machine guns in their hands, and 2 blazing long sabers slid out from their backs and into their hands. As expected, the guns and cannons of the Old Harry are not reliable. It's fine if they bully a mob, but when they meet the well-trained elites of the Empire, they are restrained in every way. Since that's the case, I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. During the short exchange of fire between the 2 sides, a group of loyal shield guards came out from the back of the tent and raised a shield wall to protect the general and the other generals. Qi Guanyin's face was as gloomy as water. looking at the blazing angels who were surrounded in the center of the barrage. Killing intent burst out from his eyes. However, he did not give the order to attack for a long time and only let the soldiers do what they wanted. One of the generals was anxious and asked in a low voice, "General, do you want them alive or dead? Do you want a big fight or a small one?" Qi Guanyin shook his head and suddenly asked, "Who was the first one to shout and shoot?" The generals looked at each other and shook their heads. "I don't know. The voice is not familiar. I can't recognize it." The general was silent for a moment and asked again, "Where did the voice come from? Did you recognize it?" A look of reminiscence and deep thought appeared on the faces of the generals. It seemed to be one side, and it also seemed to be the other, but no one could tell. No one could remember clearly. They all shook their heads. One of the generals said, "There are so many people. How can we tell? If you want to pursue the matter, you can restrain the soldiers and order them to verify each other's identities." While they were talking, they peeked at the general's face. The soldiers attacking without permission was the same as acting without permission. They had violated the general's taboo. These little bastards might be fighting happily right now, but they would all be punished when this was over. The one who dared to fire the first shot might be beheaded directly. What a pity. Qi Guanyin did not know what his subordinates were thinking. His eyes were like lightning as he paced back and forth between the soldiers on both sides, as if he was trying to find something. His expression became more and more serious. When the blazing angels were hit by a sniper for the second time, his eyes were even brighter, like a tiger that had picked its prey. However, he still found nothing. This shot was very strange. The trajectory of the bullet was strange, and the strength was even stranger. The key was, where did it come from? The general's expression became more and more serious. He knew almost all the talents and elites in the army. He also knew the models and power of all the firearms in the army. There was not a single person in the army who could fire such a shot. Thinking of this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. In other words, an unknown person had snuck into the army? He was so angry that he almost laughed. Good, this was a good time. Any random person would come out and show themselves. Qi Guanyin's mind was like a wheel as he fell into deep thought. The shout that caused the chaos just now showed an extremely high level of inner strength. It seemed to be far and near, and it was erratic. It was as if it was ringing in everyone's ears, making it impossible to tell where it came from. And the gunshot just now also showed a lot of problems. Although he did not know how that person could fire an anti-material heavy explosive shot, he obviously did not want to reveal his martial arts and identity. So he chose to fire. Thinking of this, the general let out a cold laugh. "You think that just by firing a shot, I won't be able to guess who you are?" At a time like this, there were only two kinds of powerful cultivators that could be related to Qi Yi. Either they were sent by the Tensei province to monitor this Qi Guanyin, or that person called Sun Lang. Qi Guanyin leaned towards the latter, because even if the former did not take the initiative to show himself, he would not play this kind of trick. And the latter had enough motive, because Sun Lang and Courier were in the same group. Courier wanted to use this opportunity to get rid of the blazing angel in front of him, so Sun Lang hid in the crowd to fan the flames and start a fight. This could be completely explained. This Sun Lang's guts are really too daring. Not only did he hide in the army camp to monitor me, he even dared to mix in and start a fight, forcing me to clash with this blazing angel to ensure that Courier's proposal and plan can be carried out smoothly. His intentions are really hateful. Maybe this blazing angel was also coaxed by them to cause trouble. These unscrupulous bastards, they are really going too far. The more Qi Guanyin thought about this, the angrier he became. He felt that he had been too sullen recently. As a great general of a province, one of the few martial ministers in the world, he was actually being used and played around by these fellows. Even a man made of mud would have some anger, let alone him. This time, that Sun Lang did not give him a heads up and started this matter on his own. How hateful! He looked up and saw that the blazing angel had drawn two long blades from its back, as if it wanted to fight in close combat. The great general thought about it and sneered in his heart. This Qi Guanyin is an important minister of the current era, a high official of the imperial court. How can I be so easily manipulated by you? And so he pushed aside the guards in front of him, took 2 steps forward, and said sternly, "Everyone stop." As expected, the soldiers on both sides immediately stopped attacking. The blazing angel carried 2 large blades, so it was not good for it to charge into the crowd and kill. It was stunned for a moment, and then turned to look at Qi Guanyin. "What? You want to fight me one-on-one?" Qi Guanyin looked around. That despicable thief must be hiding in the shadows, observing the situation. He sneered in his heart and said to the blazing angel, "Who told you to come here?" The blazing angel was stunned for a moment, then said proudly, "Of course it was me who wanted to come here." Qi Guanyin shook his head. "Wrong, very wrong. I know someone told you to come here. It's a woman, right?" The blazing angel was slightly startled. That was true. It had come here according to the Wang family's plan. Could it be that this fellow had already guessed it? Qi Guanyin saw that the blazing angel was stunned, and his heart was already 80% clear. He sneered in his heart. As expected, it was that woman courier who had tricked it into coming here to die. The great general was fully focused on the movements around him as he said, "Why did you come here and say such provocative words to me? Did that person teach you to say those words? She must have made up a very reasonable reason, right? But you also saw the result. I have countless elite soldiers under my command and many generals. This Qi's martial arts are also passable. If we really fought, you definitely wouldn't have it easy." The blazing angel snorted in dissatisfaction, but didn't say anything. Although time was tight and the matter was rushed, the performance of this group of soldiers just now could already be said to be the best in the world. Moreover, due to time and space constraints, they definitely had many methods and tactics that they hadn't used. Moreover, Qi Guanyin, this great expert, hadn't made a move yet. Qi Guanyin said again, "So, what's the result? If I hadn't called for a halt and continued to fight, what would the result have been? You might have lost the battle, or even been captured by us. Such a thing is very likely to happen. Or rather, you might have broken out of the encirclement, but you would have killed many of my soldiers. Our 2 sides would have become mortal enemies, right?" As he said this, the great general said meaningfully, "Is this the result you want? Think about it carefully. Are you being used? That woman might not be as reliable as you think." The blazing angel blinked and finally understood what Qi Guanyin was thinking. Then it flew into a rage. "You actually try to drive a wedge between me and your wife. There's actually a husband like you. Why did this Wang sure choose a man like you?" Holding some sympathy and injustice towards the Wang sure, it shouted loudly, "It's useless to say more. You despicable person. I'm scolding you. I'm beating you." Qi Guanyin was stunned at first, but before he could say anything, he heard a loud shout from the side. "Now!" The wind whistled, and several unknown objects flew out of nowhere and rushed into the air. Bang, 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 bang. Chapter 461. A sudden change occurred. Several unidentified objects shot up into the sky, and then gunshots roared. Evil winds billowed. Bloody rain poured down. Among the various armies of the 9 states of the empire, the Mingzhou army, which had always focused on military theory and equipment innovation, once again walked at the forefront of the world. They encountered a small-scale, non-lethal attack by biological weapons. Presumably, tonight's encounter would be engraved in their bones and be passed down through word of mouth, providing another way of thinking for future generations. For example, when suppressing protesters, demonstrators, and illegal gatherings, there were always more effective and gentler methods than tear gas and stun grenades. In fact, ever since Sun Lang discovered the use of canned herring, he was a little puzzled every night when he recalled his past memories. In the democratic countries of Europe and America, in his previous life, whenever there was a large-scale violent protest, it would always be warmly received by the violent organs of the democratically elected government. The people would greet the military and police with rocks, Molotov cocktails, and if the military and police couldn't stand it, they would use tear gas and high-pressure water hoses to disperse the crowd. Then came the question, why didn't both sides think of a more effective method? Even if throwing feces was disgusting, at least there was Kinharin to throw. Why not? For the state's violent organs. Even if tear gas had no after effects, it would still make people feel uncomfortable for a while, and high-pressure water hoses could hurt people. Why not use a gentler method? Why not? For the protesting crowd, rocks and Molotov cocktails could cause physical harm and social destruction. Why not use a more harmless method to express their anger? Why? A fixed-point heating and detonation method that could be solved by an alcohol lamp, a crazy face-covering method when in close contact with the riot police, a catapult method used to attack the riot shield wall, a water gun used by children to play with, a water rocket used by students for extracurricular homework, and the cream cannon used in various variety shows. Why were these people so inflexible? Why did they hurt each other? Wasn't it better to use a gentler method? He didn't understand. He really didn't understand. Anyway, looking at the current situation, it seemed to be quite effective. When these inhumane biochemical bombs sputtered on a large scale in the air, it undoubtedly had a great shock and impact on these elite soldiers. Although they were well-trained, although they were elites that Qi Guanyin was proud of, they were still humans, not killing machines. As humans, they had weaknesses. Just like the brave warriors of Aztec who dared to fight with tigers and leopards. When they first experienced the bombardment of the European colonists' lances and cannons, they would also be shocked, terrified, and frightened to the point of screaming. It wasn't because they were afraid of the enemy, but because they were afraid of the unknown. This unknown method of attack made them fearful, confused, and at a loss for what to do. Although Qi Guanyin was a master of military skills, he was still limited by the era. No matter how good he was at strategizing and training soldiers, the things he taught his soldiers were limited to common sense and experience, such as quickly disposing of corpses, using quicklime, paying attention to washing their hands and personal hygiene, boiling drinking water, and so on. As for this kind of terrifying attack, he didn't even think about it himself. Thus, when the soldiers realized what the heavenly filth was, even with their elite strength, they were greatly shaken. Many of them directly vomited, and the others were cursing. For a moment, the formation was in chaos. At this moment, there was a roar of grief and indignation. That red hair, pickled sh*t, bastard, throwing sh*t, mother of *cur, throw it into the cesspool and drown it. After all, they were elite soldiers. When they realized that this attack leaned towards mental attacks and didn't cause any physical damage, the soldiers slowly calmed down. Their panic and shock naturally turned into rage when they smelled this fatal smell. When they heard this roar, they abruptly raised their heads, their ferocious gazes seemingly wanting to poke holes in the blazing angel's armor. The Rain of Death attack just now had a very strong identification and guidance ability. Although it was an AoE attack, it completely avoided the blazing angel's position. In other words, the blazing angel's entire body was clean and fresh, a stark contrast to the Empire's soldiers who were covered in unknown substances. The blazing angel was also startled by the shout of, "Now is the time, just now." Then it saw a live show. As for why this happened, it had no clue at all. The life support system of the blazing angel's armor filtered out most of the abnormal smells, but there was still a bad smell that drilled into its nostrils, causing it to realize what it was that had fallen from the sky. And after hearing that roar of grief and indignation, it realized that it seemed to have taken the blame. Just as it was about to speak up to explain, it looked up and saw that the group of brave and invincible elite soldiers of the Empire who were previously extremely good at fighting were at this moment, all dressed in yellow and green from head to toe, staring at it without saying a word. The atmosphere suddenly became quiet. Not a single sound could be heard. In that scene, that contrast before and after, it was just too comical. The blazing angel couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. It was King screwed. The laughter was so inappropriate that it was immediately taken as the most hateful provocation and mockery. After a moment of silence, the soldiers burst into fury like a flood. There was no telling who shouted again, but they picked up the weapons in their hands and charged at the blazing angel's armor, which symbolized the strongest force of the Liefire kingdom, with a momentum of dying together with the enemy. They were roaring and roaring. They had turned into beasts. They had turned into berserkers. They were roaring and fighting. Such an unstoppable momentum could be called a great army on the heaven's origin battlefield. Roars and cries echoed in the ranks one after another. Very clearly, there was also a voice that seemed to be familiar to the ears, who kept shouting, "Kill him! Kill him! Kill him!" In the previous round of biochemical attacks, the generals in front of the main tent were also included in the attack range. However, these people's martial arts were very high and their reactions were very fast. They immediately rushed into the main tent and avoided this round of attacks. After they realized what had happened and saw the reactions of the soldiers, they were all scared and angry. They also shouted, "Great General, give the order." Qi Guanyin still frowned and didn't say anything. He closed his eyes and listened carefully. When his subordinate couldn't help but speak again, he suddenly opened his eyes and said through gritted teeth, "Wang Rulong, Wu Weizhong, immediately go and organize the outer deployment. Reorganize the war chariots and prepare to set up the Luan Phoenix resonance formation. Also, tell Chen Dusheng to have his Changliang cavalry ready. Lunan, go and prepare some torches." After giving the order, without waiting for his subordinates to ask, Qi Guanyin suddenly rushed out of the tent. He circulated his internal breath, and his speed instantly soared to the extreme. His family had a long history. In terms of martial arts, he was one of the few grandmasters in the world. However, as the general of the army and the commander of the country, he had always believed that individual strength was not enough. For an army, the strength of group and cooperation was more important than anything else. After he became a general, he didn't even have the opportunity to lead troops to the front line, let alone show off his martial arts. He was an anomaly among the high-ranking generals of the empire. But this didn't mean that he couldn't fight. The general strode out of the tent like a ferocious tiger, charging toward the blazing angel with unstoppable momentum. The blazing angel was surrounded by many furious soldiers. He felt an inexplicable sense of fear and had long thought of retreating. His purpose for coming here was to carry out the Wang family's plan. But now, for some reason, that perfectly good plan had met with all kinds of accidents. Moreover, it was so baffling that he couldn't figure out what was going on. Moreover, Qi Guanyin had exposed his true colors. In other words, the Wang family's plan was no longer feasible. So, there was no point in staying here. Seeing Qi Guanyin rushing out of the tent and coming straight for him, although he wasn't afraid of this person, there was no point in fighting him now. The blazing angel had already made up his mind. The ejector on his back spewed out blazing flames. The power core roared as it activated its maximum power. It suddenly soared into the sky and didn't forget to stir things up one last time. What a good show. Humph, Qi Guanyin, if you still have any feelings for your wife, then come to Mingzhou. Seeing the enemy soar into the sky, the soldiers let out an indignant roar. They all raised the long-range weapons in their hands, wanting to intercept the enemy from the ground. But suddenly, they heard an angry roar. "All of you stop." The voice contained inner strength like a tiger's roar, buzzing in everyone's ears. The soldiers couldn't be more familiar with this voice. The person who spoke was the general, Qi Guanyin. This dignified roar was like a bucket of cold water that was poured on the raging flames of anger. It woke them up abruptly, and they looked around blankly. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Qi Guanyin stared coldly at this group of very strange soldiers. After a moment of silence, he said indifferently, "Everyone, get into formation immediately. Then, confirm if the people around you are your comrades." This order was somewhat strange, but the soldiers were intimidated by the general's prestige and immediately obeyed. They turned to look at the people around them and continuously reported to their decarches. At the same time, a group of soldiers rushed in from the outside with torches and ropes raised high. They flattened all the tents around them and stood guard under a few trees, using the light of the torches to check if there were people in the trees. Several other generals had received the order in advance, and with the central tent as the center, they surrounded this place with 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Qi Guanyin stood where he was, not paying any attention to the fleeing, blazing angel. His gaze sun-ran as he looked around. Suddenly, his gaze sharpened and his body moved at will. The general's figure seemed to have turned into a wisp of green smoke as he passed over the heads of a group of soldiers. Then, he took a few steps and soared into the sky like an owl. His gaze was like lightning as he locked onto a sneaky figure. "Found you!" His right hand formed into a tiger's claw, and his 5 fingers made a sharp gust of wind as he vented all the grievances and anger of the past 2 days. "Get out here for me!" That guy was suddenly seen through and jumped in fright. He let out an "Aya" and turned around to run. However, Qi Guanyin was burning with rage at this moment. How could he allow him to escape? The general exhaled and shouted. 2 palms. The wind from the palms was blazing, and the strength was like Mount Tai. It was unstoppable and directly lifted a tent beside his hand into the air and landed on that person's head. He was currently in a frenzy and had lost his mind for a moment. He roared and rushed forward. His fists were like the wind as they rained down on the tent. The force of his fists shook, and the strong force of his fists caused the soft tent to rumble like the roar of a drum. His momentum and strength were so strong that even if there was a cow inside, it would most likely be beaten into a pile of meat paste, let alone a person. F***CK. After a few dozen punches, a figure rushed out of the tent. He exclaimed as he ran, "These punches are even more powerful than Nana Mizuki's." The other party was full of energy, and even his clothes were not messed up at all. Moreover, those punches just now did not feel like they had landed at all. Undoubtedly, this person's martial arts skills were very high. But Qi Guanyin did not care about this. He chased after him while shouting, "Stop right there! Turn around!" That person shouted back, "Why should I? You're the one who didn't follow the rules. You should be the one to stop first and turn around. Count to 100 and then chase after me." "What nonsense!" Qi Guanyin's hair stood on end as he roared. "Who the hell are you? It's none of your business." That person was undoubtedly Sun Lang. He shouted as he ran. "Your wife ran away with someone else. Why are you chasing after me? Do you want to play one with me? I'll play your mother." Qi Guanyin roared, "Stop right there. Who the hell are you?" Sun Lang was also angry. What kind of character was this, cursing his mother every time he opened his mouth? He shouted back, "Handsome young warrior, F***CK, your mother on behalf of the moon." Qi Guanyin's anger, which was already burning, was pushed to another level by this provocation. He roared like a wild beast and channeled his Jinqi into his feet. His speed became faster and faster. The two of them chased each other and directly broke through the blockade of the army and rushed out of the inner-city army camp. Several generals saw their commander running away with the enemy and were stunned for a moment. After leaving one person to clean up the mess, the others led the cavalry and hurried out of the camp. But as soon as they got out of the camp, they were dumbfounded. It was empty all around. Where could they find their commander? Sun Lang rushed out of the inner city and headed straight for the outer city. Qi Guanyin chased closely behind him. His murderous aura seemed to have condensed into a substance and stabbed at his back. He shouted and screamed, but he was laughing in his heart. The Empire's former Grand Marshal of the World Armed Forces had personally led the Mingzhou general to catch adulterers. No one would believe such an exciting story. Art indeed came from life. Chapter 462. Sun Lang was a time traveler. Sun Lang was a modern person. Sun Lang was a Chinese. Sun Lang was a boy. Therefore, he must have been influenced by the traditional martial arts culture. At some point in his childhood, he must have been exposed to the image of martial arts from TV, novels, and games. He must have been exposed to those cool martial arts skills. He would know that there was a group of people who could fly very high, send out waves with their hands, or make explosions. The worst of them could send people flying, and the best of them could even send 18 dragons with one slap. He would dream of becoming such a person because he looked cool and handsome, could fight well, could fly, and could punish bad guys. Children always worshipped heroes and powerful people. The reason why dreams were dreams was because dreams were constantly changing. As one grew older, dreams would change as well. From wanting to be a hero, one wanted to be a soldier, a policeman, or a pilot. This was the first step of compromise from fantasy to reality. That was because children would always understand that heroes were fictional. Such powerful martial arts did not exist. The heroes and powerful people that existed in reality were mighty soldiers, policemen who could catch bad guys, and pilots who could fly however they wanted. Then, as he grew older, his dreams would further change from being a soldier, a policeman, and a pilot to being a general, the president of a country, and the richest man in the world, because children at that time had gradually understood the true meaning of power. Then, his dreams became Tsinghua University, Peking University, the two-color ball, and the demolition of his hometown. Finally, his dreams became finding a girlfriend, preferably one with fair skin, beautiful breasts, long legs, loyalty, intelligence, and a rich family. Everyone knew what happened later. Sun Lang, who understood the true meaning of power and the reality of the world, began to live his life in a down-to-earth way. It was not a magnificent life with ups and downs, but it was full and happy. The future was worth looking forward to, and life was good. Then he traveled. In any case, Sun Lang finally realized his childhood dream and became a master much stronger than Wallace. This was something to be happy about. When he was a child, the reason why he longed for heroes and dreamed of learning martial arts was that there were two martial arts skills that he had always wanted to have: acupoint sealing and qigong. He had already mastered both of these martial arts, especially the former. He had mastered it so much that he didn't even need to identify the acupoints. He could casually tap on a girl's body to create a lasting and powerful acupoint sealing effect. Of course, I'm talking about the inner strength that can instantly seal any acupoints with just a light tap. I hope that everyone won't misunderstand. As for qigong, he was also very good. If he were to become a reporter, he could even leave his counterparts in Hong Kong in the dust. Even in this world, he could be a very promising career. He could come and go as fast as the wind and as light as the wind. He could go in and out of thousands of households and deliver some special things to all the young ladies who were waiting for him. Of course, I'm talking about the courier who only serves beautiful ladies. I hope everyone doesn't misunderstand. In Jianghu, it was fine not to know acupoint sealing, but one must learn qigong. This was an essential skill for killing, robbing, and fleeing. It was useful in all aspects of life. For example, when you were being chased by the old Wong next door, you could easily and happily escape. At this moment, Sun Lang was running against the wind. Behind him was the murderous Qi Guanyin. The great general of Mingzhou was chasing him like a mad tiger. It was an unprecedented spectacle in the Hutu military world. At this time, the advantages of qigong were revealed. Sun Lang's skill was profound and fast. He also played Century Gun 3 and cleared several generations of Assassin's Creed. Hanzo also used Thief 6. Endurance, speed, skills, parkour, climbing walls, and other qigong indicators completely crushed Qi Guanyin. It was impossible for him to be caught by Qi Guanyin. The two of them chased each other from the inner city to the outer city, and then from the outer city to the outer city. They ran on roofs, ran on walls, jumped over walls, and jumped off buildings without any pause. The two of them were both top experts in the world. Their internal energy was long and endless. Although Qi Guanyin couldn't catch up to him, under Sun Lang's intention to let him go, he still firmly maintained a chasing posture. But the more he chased, the more frightened he became. This thief's martial arts were far beyond his imagination. Such qigong and such internal energy were unheard of. After running for such a long time, the anger in his heart subsided. After all, he had a calm personality and wasn't a reckless person who liked to fight. So he shouted, "Your Excellency, please wait. With your martial arts, you're already one of the top masters in the world. Why are you playing with me?" Sun Lang didn't even look back. He ran and shouted, "Damn, are you kidding me? You're the one who chased me. How'd I play with you?" Qi Guanyin immediately said, "It's my fault. I'll apologize to your Excellency. I won't fight anymore." Sun Lang said. Then, we'll meet again. Your Excellency, please wait. Qi Guanyin shouted as he chased. Your Excellency trespassed into our camp, fanned the flames, and caused trouble. As the general of Mingzhou, I should demand an explanation from you. Sun Lang said straightforwardly, I'm not a good person. I just like to stir up trouble. Are you satisfied now? After being fooled again and again, Qi Guanyin couldn't stand it no matter how good his temper was. He said sternly, If you continue to be perfunctory, I'll use the Imperial Army. Sun Lang was shocked. He immediately stopped and turned back to roll his eyes. You better not. If you alert the enemy, you won't be able to see a good show. Qi Guanyin was stunned when he saw Sun Lang's face. Although he had heard the voice, the young man's age was beyond his imagination. The world was so big, and there were so many crouching tigers and hidden dragons. He had achieved so much at such a young age. In the entire Hutu Empire, even if countless heroes emerged from the Tianyuan War, there were only a few who could compare with him. However, he only sighed his heart and immediately put the matter aside. Everything else was fine. There was only one thing he cared about. The general asked solemnly, May I know your name? Your Excellency? Sun Lang put his hands behind his back and looked up at the night sky. The gentle breeze tousled his robe. He stared at the bright moon in the sky and said indifferently, I'm not telling you. Qi Guanyin's expression changed slightly. Then, he said coldly, Your name is Sun Lang, right? Sun Lang rolled his eyes. Why are you still asking when you already know? Are you crazy? The general took a step forward, and his expression turned cold. Where's my wife? Sun Lang opened his hands and said innocently, Didn't the seraph say that your wife was taken away by it? Qi Guanyin took another step forward and said in a low voice, You're not on the same side? Sun Lang sniffed in his heart. According to the plan that he and Courier had made, they would put the blame on the seraph and lead Qi Guanyin to destroy it. However, the plan could never keep up with the changes. When he stayed in the military camp to monitor Qi Guanyin's movements, he discovered that the seraph had suddenly appeared and seemed to be planning something too. The seraph and Madame Wang definitely had other plans. Otherwise, it would have directly told Qi Guanyin that Madame Wang was safe instead of mocking him. Moreover, before it left, it didn't forget to tell Qi Guanyin to hurry to Mingzhou. Its abnormal behavior was very suspicious, but its motive was easy to analyze. It was clear what it wanted to do by luring Qi Guanyin to Mingzhou. Seeing that the situation had changed again, Sun Lang immediately adapted to the situation. He was, after all, a veteran of war. Following the other party's plan, he came up with another vicious plan. Since you delivered yourself to my doorstep and Madame Wang had bad intentions, then don't blame me for being ruthless. I'll bring Qi Guanyin to catch you in the act and see what you have to say. However, this matter was awkward. Courier had already laid the groundwork and said that the seraph was his comrade. He had made a big lie, and it wasn't easy to cover it up now. However, the Grand Marshal was the Grand Marshal after all. He was indeed a famous strategist who fought a battle of wits and courage with the Sky Demon. Faced with Qi Guanyin's doubts and interrogation, he came up with a solution in the blink of an eye. When you realize that the previous scapegoat was not tightly covered and aroused suspicion, how should you deal with it? It's very simple. Put on a bigger scapegoat that was 30% white and 70% black. He said as if nothing had happened. Theoretically speaking, we are indeed on the same side. However, you know that we belong to different factions and are only temporary allies. We each have our own interest groups and are not of the same mind. For example, Courier is the flame guard of the bishop's faction in the kingdom of Lifefire. The seraph that kidnapped your wife is the lackey of the divine emperor faction. Qi Guanyin's eyes were like lightning. What about you? You're a citizen of the empire. Why are you mingling with these foreigners? Sun Lang smiled proudly. It's more complicated to explain. Of course, it's because of my identity. You know that the Zhang family has a trade route to the kingdom of Lifefire and a trade license. They have a good relationship with the Russians. Therefore, they got in touch with the two flame guards. As for me, I am the son-in-law of the Zhang family and also a member of the northern faction. My dual identities allowed me to act as the middleman and establish the foundation for the cooperation between the Hutu Kingdom's northern faction and the Church of Lifefire. Qi Guanyin nodded his head dubiously. In that case, some things did make sense, but you were a member of the northern faction? He asked suspiciously. You're so good at martial arts that you can't be a nobody. Why haven't I heard of your name before? Sun Lang said casually, I didn't use my real name before. It's a secret of the imperial court. You don't need to ask about it. Frowning, Qi Guanyin suddenly asked, how many armored cavalry troops were there in the northern theater of operations? Kori, Longjia, Tianyu, Shenwu, and how many civil and military officials were there above the 5th rank? 6 out of 70. Who was the general in charge of logistics, military supplies, and money? Wei Zhongxian. Who was the military supervisor before the battle? Lai Junshen. Qi Guanyin kept asking questions, and Sun Lang answered them one by one. Some questions were answered correctly, some questions were answered carelessly, and some questions were answered carelessly. Qi Guanyin didn't bat an eyelid, but nodded inwardly. Based on the answers he got, he roughly outlined Lai Junshen's rank, position, and mission in the army. He confirmed the two. It seemed that Lai Junshen was the general of the secret troop under the command of Marshal Jia in the Northern Theater of Operations. No wonder he didn't want to reveal his identity. With his identity, martial arts, and strength, he could indeed act as the middleman between the Church of Lifefire and the Northern faction. Moreover, it was Lai Junshen who led his subordinates to help Hu Shouxin in the Battle of Mingzhou and wiped out the Black Armored Army. Only Lai Junshen could do that. After convincing himself, Lai Junshen's expression softened. He cupped his hands and said, You are indeed a friend from the Northern Theater of Operations. I have exchanged letters with your Marshal Jia. I admire his art of war and military achievements very much. Although I have never met him, I have regarded him as a confidant and good friend. It's a pity that I can't meet him. I always feel regretful. Sun Lang's eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment and frustration. He sighed. Marshal's grace is peerless, unparalleled under the heavens. You are a dragon among men, a young hero. Back then, I don't know how many young girls admired you, but unfortunately. Qi Guanyin also sighed and said, Unfortunately, the heavens are jealous of talents. The two seem to have found a common topic. After praising the legendary Marshal Jia, they became closer to each other. Qi Guanyin saw that the time was right. He smiled bitterly and said, Brother, I am a few years older than you. I am shameless enough to call you my younger brother. I know that this matter involves a lot of things. Not only does it involve the conflict between the Northern Theater of Operations and Tensei Province, it also involves the Lihua Kingdom. But my wife is innocent. Innocent my ass. She's obviously a spy from the Heavenly Policy Mansion. She's hiding in the dark right now and even wants to lure you to Mingzhou. It's most likely that woman who gave the order to coax you into going against old Hu so that you'll die in my hands. This will cause unrest in the imperial court and cause the world to criticize me, causing me to be at a moral disadvantage. What? Do you still want to forgive her? Sun Lang sneered in his heart, but he did not show it on his face. He said with a smile, To be honest, it was the Seraph's own idea to kidnap your wife. After all, he represents the Divine Emperor's faction. He also claimed that you are a lackey of Tensei Province and that you were ordered by Empress to catch the Death Messenger and the Lone Traveler, deliver the Seraph armor to the capital, and decipher the flame technology of the Lihua Kingdom. Qi Guanyin's heart skipped a beat. He forced a smile and said, How could that be? Sun Lang nodded and said, Yes, I also think that it is Bullsh *T. General Qi, you are a hero and an invincible hero of Tianyuan. How could you be a servile, degenerate, and shameless dog of Tensei Province? Am I right? Not to mention betraying national security and provoking a war between two countries. Someone must be messing with you on purpose. Qi Guanyin blushed. Looking at the sincerity on Sun Lang's face, he could not tell for a moment whether he was cursing him in a roundabout way or from the bottom of his heart. But very soon, he threw the matter to the back of his head, because Sun Lang said mysteriously, Not long ago, I found a clue. Qi Guanyin was shocked. He asked in a low voice, "What clue?" Sun Lang hesitated for a moment and then said, "That seraph is probably a spy of Tensei province. He insisted on splitting up with us. I'm afraid that he has other plans. This time, I'm trying to track him and observe him in secret to see what he is up to. However, he is always flying in the sky, so it is impossible to track him down immediately. Fortunately, I made a mark on him during the chaos. Just now, he smiled and said, 'Brother Qi, do you want to go together? Maybe you can find your wife.'" A strange light flashed in Qi Guanyin's eyes, but he pretended to be refreshed and nodded. "I can't ask for more." However, he still hesitated for a moment and asked in a low voice, "Brother, what mark is that? Is it that shit?" "Of course not." Chapter 463. The two of them had finally turned from enemies to friends. Temporarily, and they had reached a strange and subtle consensus. Qi Guanyin had joined the team. Sun Lang held the general's hand and said with great emotion, "I'm going to rescue your wife. Don't be a coward." Qi Guanyin nodded emotionally. "Brother, you're so righteous. I can't thank you enough." Both of them were people with profound internal energy. They didn't say much and immediately set off. Qi Guanyin missed his wife and rushed with all his might. However, he had all kinds of doubts in his heart that he couldn't get rid of. So on the way, he couldn't help but ask, "Brother, you said that the blazing angel was a spy in Tensei province?" Sun Lang was still nodding calmly and leisurely. He did not even blink as he pushed the blame to the pitiful blazing angel. "And no, this is not a lie." He glanced at Qi Guanyin as if nothing had happened and said, "Yes, we've only recently caught the real evidence. But then again, how much does General Qi know about the recent events?" Qi Guanyin was slightly startled and then felt awkward. Everything that had happened recently seemed to be related to him. Xianjia had entered Ming province, and Hu Shouxin had used his imperial weapon to suppress the city. As a general of Ming province, it was only right for him to intervene. But he didn't. Leaf Fire mutated. Yin guards fought with each other. Death Messenger chased after the lone wanderer. Empress secretly ordered him to lead troops to help. But he didn't succeed. The situation had been unstable several times, and the war between the northern faction and the Heavenly Policy Hall was about to break out at any moment. At such a sensitive time, the Heavenly Policy Hall had sent him an inexplicable order, asking him to capture both blazing angels in one fell swoop and escort them to the capital. But he didn't do it. He smelled a huge crisis from Empress's order. Being in a dilemma, he wanted to do his last loyalty for Tensei province, repay Empress's help over the years, and protect Madam's life. However, unforeseen events happened one after another. Now, Madam was taken away by thieves, and several forces were entangled with each other. Shit happened one after another. There were so many King things. Before the first wave was over, another wave arose. He glanced at Sun Lang and smiled bitterly. "I know a little." Sun Lang smiled. "That's good. I'll just focus on the main points." He knew that Qi Guanyin had ulterior motives and didn't fully trust him. The reason why he agreed to work with him was because he was worried about his wife and could only give it a shot. Secondly, he was confident in his own strength. After all, Qi Guanyin was a grandmaster and a general of the province. He had the powerful imperial army granted by the court. His own strength was not to be underestimated. If he just ran and broke out of the encirclement, few people in the world could take him down. Besides, this place was not far away from Huqing. Even if he was in danger, he only needed to send out a signal, and the elite troops would definitely come. But it doesn't matter. I happen to be one of those people. Pretending to be cool in his heart, Sun Lang said calmly. The situation in Mingzhou has become a mess. Empress is very scared of what happened in Mingzhou, but there is no good way to deal with it. Hearing that, Qi Guanyin frowned. He also realized that something was wrong from the silence of the court and the strange order from Tensei province. If it was just a battle between Hu Shouxin and the Black Armored Army, the entire court wouldn't have pretended to be deaf and dumb. But now, not only did the Tensei province, which had destroyed the black armored army, remained silent. Even the Heaven's Origin faction behind whose Shoshin was silent. Something that made them feel extremely troubled or suspicious must have happened. What could it be? He had also found it strange these days, but there were too many things that tormented and troubled him these days. He really did not have the mood to pay attention to the stupid things that had happened in Mingzhou. Now that Sun Lang had mentioned it, the others seemed to know something. He asked directly, "What is the inside story of Mingzhou that can cause the Empress and the Imperial Court to fall into silence?" Sun Lang smiled apologetically. "This is too surprising and exciting. I can't tell you right now." The general was stunned. Then he smiled bitterly. "I was too rash. This kind of thing must be top secret. Why would he tell me so casually?" Sun Lang did not give him time to think. He continued, "Empress doesn't have any good way to deal with it, but she has a bad way to deal with it. Although it's a little messed up, it's still useful. She's a ruthless and decisive person. After knowing that this is the best way to break out of the situation, she used it without hesitation, no matter how serious the consequences were." Qi Guanyin immediately thought of the strange order that Tensei Province had given him, to eliminate the Death Messenger and the Lone Ranger, the two Seraphs. He shivered inwardly and asked calmly, "What's the way?" Sun Lang turned to look at Qi Guanyin and smiled. "Make the situation even more chaotic. For example, induce you to go to Mingzhou and fight with Hu Shoshin. Both of you will suffer great losses, and you might even die for no reason. Then, the court will be filled with even greater waves. After all, it's easy to cover up the Black Armored Army's destruction, but if the general of Mingzhou dies, the cover will definitely be blown." Qi Guanyin forced a smile. "In other words," Sun Lang said casually, "create friction, provoke a border conflict, and infuriate the divine power of flames, so that the country of fire will send its soldiers to the border and even invade. The effect will be the same. As for the way to do it, it's very simple. Every country has a strategic force that is regarded as their exclusive property, and no outsiders are allowed to touch it. For example, the warriors of the Imperial Army in Hutu and the flame technology in Lihua." Then he stopped and looked at Qi Guanyin meaningfully. "The Seraph armor is not only the highest achievement of the flame technology in Lihua, but also the most powerful force of the Seraphs. It's as important to the divine power of flames as the 7 luminaries' sword saint of the Imperium. If 2 or 3 of them are killed in Mingzhou and the armor is shipped to the capital of Hutu, the Russians will definitely fly into a rage. It's very likely that they'll start a war without saying anything." Qi Guanyin stopped, too, with a weird look on his face. Sun Lang squinted at him without saying a word. The look in Qi Guanyin's eyes changed. In the end, he gave up denying it and said with a bitter smile, "You know everything?" Sun Lang nodded casually. "I have the advantage of intelligence. It's not hard to analyze a lot of things. When Courier questioned you before, you didn't admit it, but you couldn't hide it from me. It's been a few days since the incident in Mingzhou, and you're still in Hongshan. You must have encountered something very difficult. Considering the current situation in Tensei Province, it's obvious that Empress is the only way to resolve the situation. Since you know that I'm from Tensei Province, why did you say those words before?" The general suddenly realized something and said angrily, "You're indeed cursing me in a roundabout way." Sun Lang picked his nose and said lazily, "Sorry, I said something wrong. I'll give you 450 coins after this." "What kind of logic is this?" Qi Guanyin was taken aback by this abrupt question. Sun Lang continued, "So, great General Qi, you've already been treated as an abandoned pawn? I'm sure you know the consequences of Empress Concubine's order." He snapped his fingers and said with a smile, "Destroying 2 blazing angels is already the highest level of diplomatic disaster. It's practically a declaration of war. It'll definitely cause a lot of discussion in the court. It'll be strange if those imperial censors don't swallow you alive. Even if you're the general of Mingzhou, you'll have to be punished for this kind of crime and never be used again. This is on the premise that Tensei Province does its best to protect you." Qi Guanyin said sadly, This punishment is already beyond the law, Sun Lang said with a smile. However, it's not like there's no hope at all. After all, this world is a dirty, dark, and ugly place. Ruthless, unscrupulous, and shameless people can go further, he said faintly. If you immediately send troops to the border after destroying the blazing angels, and then make a complaint as the guilty party and submit a memorial to the emperor to put the blame on the hairy people. While sending the blazing angels to the capital, you'll also bribe the court and constantly provoke people at the border and create small-scale conflicts. Then your chances of turning the tables are very high. The former Grand Marshal of the Heavens, who wanted to become the Prime Minister, gave a thumbs up and advised the current general of Mingzhou, throw the blame away and you won't be at a moral disadvantage. Send the blazing angels to the capital and you'll be able to gain a foothold in terms of contributions to the country. You'll be able to bribe the officials and bribe them thoroughly. Then you'll feel good. Just sit tight and wait. The court will definitely give you a chance to redeem yourself, and your good friends will definitely find countless reasons to keep you in your post. You only need to mobilize the army and fight the hairy people fiercely. First, you'll recoup your losses, then continue bribing and offering prisoners as a reward. Then you'll ask for soldiers and money. However, Qi Guanyan's face turned red and he said sternly, "This is an act of chaos. I won't do it. My late father told me that the most shameful thing for a soldier is to start a war for personal gain, causing the people to suffer and plunging the people into misery and suffering. Although I am unfilial, this is the bottom line that I must uphold." Sun Lang chuckled. This so-called bottom line is just a fig leaf to deceive yourself and others. A bastard will always be a bastard. He won't stop being a son of a turtle just because he doesn't do one bad thing. You, don't be so pretentious. I think that since the Tensei province issued such an order, they're already prepared for war. You've made such a great sacrifice and bear a stain that can't be washed away. Why should you let others do the work for you? Qi Guanyin was silent. Then he slowly said, "Back then, Marshal Jiao once wrote a poem." Sun Lang looked at him in surprise. He opened his mouth slightly and made the shape of a certain sound. The general softly recited, "Based on Junmo's words, a general's success is built on 10,000 dead bodies." Qi Guanyin looked at him strangely. "What's wrong?" Sun Lang was a bit disappointed. He waved his hand and said this. He didn't write it. He quoted it. Qi Guanyin sighed and said, "No matter what, it's very appropriate. After every soldier's name, there are crying parents and desperate wives and children. This is something that can't be replaced by any amount of compensation, because you can't give the supreme honor to these dead souls, because they didn't die for protection and justice. If it wasn't for this reason, they shouldn't have died. Do you understand?" He shook his head and said, "Back then, when I fought against the sky demon on the Heaven's Origin battlefield, thousands of my soldiers, my comrades, died in the battle. But every time I went to pay respects to them, I could look at their tombstones and propose a toast to them, because I have a clear conscience. But this time, it's different," Sun Lang said with a smile. "A clear conscience, huh? Their deaths gave us victory in your brilliant military exploits. Now, they're all dead, and you're a powerful minister whose name is known throughout the province. You're rich, and you have countless properties. Who knows how many people you've taken from you? Your brother-in-law is tyrannical, your soldiers are arrogant, and you're thriving while riding on the coattails of Tensei province. Yet, you say that you have a clear conscience." He patted Qi Guanyin's shoulder and said gently, "Your subordinates' coffins are tightly closed." Qi Guanyin's expression was calm. He slapped Sun Lang's hand away and said calmly, "There are plenty of people who don't like me. You're not the only one." Sun Lang's smile was still there, but there was an indescribable mockery in it. "What? Do you have any difficulties?" The general said slowly, "No. Everything has its own cause and effect. Everything is predestined. My retribution has arrived." Sun Lang frowned slightly. He was keenly aware that Qi Guanyin seemed to have a huge knot in his heart that he had been hiding for a long time. It had dragged on for so long that he was exhausted and depressed. Although Qi Guanyin didn't say it directly, he was probably thinking of hiding from the world. That wouldn't do. How could Sun Lang let him go? He rolled his eyes and came up with a plan. Then what are you going to do? It's useless to shout nice slogans. The officialdom is a place where you can't control yourself. Sun Lang raised a finger and analyzed. Based on the current situation, you've become an important part of the Empress's plan to counterattack. If you quit, the Empress's entire plan will be disrupted. She will be passive in every aspect. She trained an army for 1,000 days to use it in a single moment. She helped you become the general of Mingzhou so that you can repay her generously one day. Now is the time for you to repay her kindness. He smiled mockingly. And you say that you have a bottom line and perseverance as a soldier. Do you think she will let you be so arrogant? Qi Guanyin looked at him indifferently and said calmly, I have my own plans. Sun Lang blinked and smiled. Then, is your wife also in your plan? The Grand General said indifferently, I will save her. I will protect her well. TSK, TSK, TSK. Crazy wife protector. I hope you will still choose to forgive her after you know the truth. Sun Lang, who was waiting to watch a good show, concealed Wang Shi's suspicions and smiled like a mortal Bai. Actually, I have an even better proposal. Are you interested? Chapter 464. Failed. Failed to ascend the throne. Failed to ascend the throne to Qi Guanyin. The master ball he threw hit Qi Guanyin's head and bounced back. She had clearly driven a wedge between him and the heavenly strategies princess as if nothing had happened. Why did it turn out like this? Wasn't this persuasive trick written in a book long ago? First, he would gain the upper hand by a show of strength. He would say, General, you're pregnant. Bah, General, you're in trouble. Then, he would analyze the terrible situation the other party was in and scare him. Then, he would point out the right path for him with a calm expression. He would make the other party kowtow in gratitude. This was clearly the classic tactic of a lobbyist. Okay. Sun Lang did follow this method. After pressing Qi Guanyin step by step, he threw out a proposal to cooperate with the northern faction. Unexpectedly, Qi Guanyin rejected it without any hesitation. Isn't this King embarrassing? Sun Lang didn't know what to do for a moment. He really wanted to shout, Mother Ker, your grandpa's son is here, and shake his body so hard that Qi Guanyin kowtowed. But he felt that it was a bit shameful. So, he persuaded earnestly, Qi Guanyin, there's a saying that a good bird chooses a good tree to nest in. A few years ago, he was still shouting that Kuang San would be his wife. In the blink of an eye, he turned to Kanna. There are a lot of shameless people like him. You don't see them rotten, right? It's just a change of big brother. This is called abandoning the darkness for the light. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Qi Guanyin smiled bitterly. Brother son, I appreciate your kindness. But let me put it bluntly. What's the difference between your northern faction and Tensei province? There's a big difference. Empress was a legitimate member of the royal family. He had the legal qualification to inherit the throne. What about me? I was a traitor. I was a treacherous official. I wanted to kill my way into the capital and take the throne. How could it be the same? The general sighed sadly and said, I'm not mocking you. It's just, I've been on the wrong path from the beginning. I really regret it. Now, I finally got my retribution. It's the price I should pay. All these years, I've always felt uneasy. Perhaps this time, for me, it's a release. Even if I lose my job and return to my hometown, there's nothing bad about it. Sun Lang felt a chill in his heart. This guy is really disheartened and wants to avoid the world. He said nonchalantly, took the wrong path? What was General Qi referring to? You may think that you've taken the wrong path, but there's still a chance for you to start over. In the end, Qi Guanyin interrupted him and said, there's no turning back, and I don't want to turn back. However, before that, I can cooperate or even trade with you to a certain extent in exchange for a promise. What do you think, brother? Sun Lang's eyes lit up when he heard this. He patted his chest and said, no problem. It's a deal between friends. Let's leave it to Hu Shouxin. He'll definitely like it. The Grand General smiled. Indeed, you could talk to Hushoshin. Sun Lang asked, what is it? Qi Guanyin sighed. My wife. She's about to give birth? The general had a dumbfounded look as he said, my wife isn't pregnant. Why do you say that? It's nothing. It's just a reflex. Sun Lang waved his hand. Continue. Qi Guanyin was a little baffled. Sun Lang's martial arts were outstanding, and he could be considered handsome. It was just that his personality was a little strange, and he would often say things that others couldn't understand. He nodded and continued, to tell you the truth, it doesn't matter if I'm removed from my position, punished by the imperial court, or retaliated by the Heavenly Policy Hall. I'm only worried about the safety of my wife. He looked at Sun Lang and said softly, Empress, if necessary, she'll definitely do something like that. I'm sure of it. Sun Lang nodded. Yes, she has a very weak sense of morality. She has the heart of an emperor without any taboos. She only knows how to weigh the pros and cons. There's nothing in the world that she doesn't dare to do. The Grand General was puzzled. You seem to be very familiar with Empress? Sun Lang laughed. I heard it from Marshal Jia. I see. It said that Marshal Jia and Empress almost. Qi Guanyin subconsciously said half of the sentence. He only realized that he had misspoken when he saw Sun Lang's strange expression. He really shouldn't have talked about the gossip of his former marshal in front of him. He smiled and hurriedly changed the topic. And this is what I'm worried about. I'm worried that she'll make things difficult for my wife. Sun Lang thought for a while. You want us to protect your wife? Yes. Qi Guanyin's eyes were shining. I said that there's no difference between the northern faction and Tensei province, but there's actually a difference. You're Marshal Jia's subordinates. The northern faction's backbone has always been straight, which I respect and envy. I know that general who has always looked down on me, but I admire his temperament and character. I only want one sentence from him. If he agrees, then he'll definitely do it. Sun Lang heard Qi Guanyin's words and kept smiling. However, he seemed to have thought of something, and his smile slowly disappeared. He said lightly, You're really a romantic. Qi Guanyin's face showed a gentle smile. He said softly, Brother Sun, you must not have a family yet. Oh, I almost forgot. You're engaged to Miss Zhang. You'll understand my feelings soon. Sun Lang's expression froze. He said fiercely, I'll understand soon. Definitely. Very soon. Qi Guanyin was surprised. Did I say something wrong? Motherf asterisk cur. I wanted to pull you into the rebellion with good intentions, but you stuffed me with dog food for no reason and still have the nerve to say it. However, this matter seemed to be a bit problematic. Protecting a woman from Tensei province was naturally not a problem, but the key problem was Motherf asterisk cur. The woman you're so infatuated with and wholeheartedly wanted to protect is a spy from Tensei province. Maybe you received orders from that woman and want to kill you. If you found out the truth, wouldn't you explode in an instant? Sun Lang touched his chin and fell in a deep thought. He wondered if he should tell Qi Guanyin in advance so that he could be mentally prepared. That's not right. His wife is a traitor. What does that have to do with me? Isn't this a good thing? What does this have to do with me? I'm here to pull Qi Guanyin into the rebellion, not to care about the family situation of active duty soldiers. Even if he and his wife have a falling out, I only need to watch the show. Besides, Qi Guanyin already has the idea of avoiding the world and wants to quit. How can I just let it go? Yes, this was a good opportunity. He could use this opportunity to discover his wife's true colors. It turned out that his wife, who he had wholeheartedly loved and wanted to protect until the end, was actually a spy that the Heavenly Policy Manor had placed by his side all this time. All of this was the Empress concubine scheme. It turned out that his wife had never loved him at all. Her heart was filled with love and tolerance all these years. But in exchange, she had only betrayed him coldly. This is the fate of a disloyal dog. The more Sun Lang thought about it, the more excited he became. After this incident, Qi Guanyin would definitely hate the Heavenly Policy Mansion. This was the perfect opportunity to rope him in. At the same time, it would also make General Qi lose all hope and love and become a loyal right-hand man of the FFF group. Damn it. How dare you stuff me with dog food? Damn you lovey-dovey dog, F asterisk king idiot. Are you stupid? Are you stupid? Qi Guanyin saw that Sun Lang's face was serious at first, and then became ecstatic. No matter how he looked at it, Qi Guanyin was shocked and whispered, Bro, what's wrong, comrade? Bah, General Qi? Sun Lang restrained the joy on his face and said solemnly, This matter, in principle, we can't agree. But as for the details, let's talk to Hu Shoshin later. But we promise to protect your wife. How are you going to repay us? Qi Guanyin said seriously, Please tell me, bro. Sun Lang rubbed his chin. It's not very humane to take advantage of the situation now. Why don't I wait until you've seen the truth of the world and experienced an unforgettable betrayal before I come out and ask about your well-being? Naturally, I can make you kowtow to me. At that time, you'll be mine. You'll have to do whatever I want you to do. Wait, there's something wrong with this. Forget it. Sun Lang waved his hand and said, I trust you, bro. We don't need to rush this. Now that your wife is still missing, we don't need to rush. What's more important is to find her. Oh, Qi Guanyin suddenly realized something and stamped his feet. I was so busy talking that I almost forgot about this. That bastard didn't take my wife away, did he? Sun Lang smiled and said, No, when it was fighting with those crazy soldiers of yours, it was also smeared with a lot of that stuff. At this time, it also has a fishy smell all over its body, almost like it fell into a cesspool. How would it dare to immediately appear in front of your wife? Your wife will definitely think that he fell into a cesspool. How can he let other people know such a shameful thing? Qi Guanyin was refreshed. Are you saying that he's looking for water to clean his armor? Sun Lang nodded and then pointed in a direction. It's probably in that direction. It stopped and didn't move for a long time. I also noticed this, so I stopped and waited for it to finish. Do you see? There's a river over there. He must be cleaning upstream. If you don't believe me, bro, you can go to the river over there and taste the water. See if there's a mysterious smell. Qi Guanyin shuddered. That won't be necessary. He thought of what Sun Lang had done before. Although he had temporarily turned from an enemy to a friend, but there was still some resentment in his voice. Brother Sun really doesn't care about trifles, causing my soldiers to suffer such pain, Sun Lang laughed. That's not feces or urine. It's actually a type of food called canned herring. Bro Qi, do you want to try it? I still have 2 cans left. After saying that, he took out a small metal can and handed it to the general. General Qi stared at the can and was silent for a long time. Then, he said with a complicated tone, Food? Is this really food? Sun Lang gave him a thumbs up. The fish is fresh and tender. It melts in your mouth. If you dip a steam bun in the soup, it'll have a different flavor. Qi Guanyin was shocked. You've eaten it before? Of course not. Sun Lang said proudly. That's what the people who ate it said. The general finally declined the gift of the sea. After thinking for a while, his face turned fierce. That bastard kidnapped my wife. He has bad intentions. Bro Sun also wants to deal with him. Why don't we quietly approach him and attack him together? Then we can force him to tell us the whereabouts of my wife. Qi Guanyin had seen Sun Lang's skills before. If he joined forces with Sun Lang, the power of their surprise attack could be imagined. Even the 7 luminaries, Sword Sage, might have to flee, let alone the Leaf Fire Guards who could only rely on their armor. Sun Lang smiled and said, Don't worry. The frightening thing about a blazing angel is that it isn't mass-produced. Every blazing angel has its own characteristics and special abilities. When we fight with a martial artist, whether it's 30 or 50 exchanges, we can always figure out their moves. But when fighting with a blazing angel, you will never know what kind of strange thing it will pull out in the next moment. If you can't hold back and let it escape or kill it, where will you find your wife? If we can't find your wife, how will we see the general's anger? How will we see you killing 70,000 of them? Qi Guanyin was convinced by him. He sighed and resentfully gave up on his plan. The 2 of them waited for a while. Sun Lang's spirit was lifted. Finally done. You're dawdling like a girl. Let's go. The Grand General was waiting anxiously. Hearing Sun Lang's words, he immediately followed Sun Lang's footsteps. He saw that Sun Lang had only focused for a moment before he found the right direction and strode off. Curious, he asked in a small voice, "Brother, how did you track that thief? Is it really not the smell of that canned herring?" Sun Lang rolled his eyes. "I'm not a dog. I don't know that kind of skill." The two of them chased side by side. Qi Guanyin smiled. "Speaking of dogs, I remember that someone once jokingly called the four fierce generals under Marshal Jia the Four Hounds. But the four of them actually accepted the title happily and called themselves the Marshal's lackeys. Loyal Hound, Hunting Hound, Vicious Hound, and Rabbit Hound. Among them, the Hunting Hound General is extremely good at tracking down enemies. Are you familiar with him?" The corners of Sun Lang's mouth twitched as he smiled. "Quite familiar." Qi Guanyin sighed. "Unfortunately, Marshal Jia passed away early. The Loyal Hounds and Hunting Hounds are one thing, but the Vicious Hounds and Rabbit Hounds are left unchecked. I heard that they've caused a lot of trouble." Sun Lang's feet moved like the wind. He said lightly, "The sky wants to rain, and the mother wants to marry. Let them be." It wasn't easy to respond to this. For a moment, the atmosphere fell into silence. Under Sun Lang's lead, the two of them moved forward secretly. Qi Guanyin was silent for a moment. Suddenly, he said, "Actually, I'm quite envious of you. Or rather, the entire army was envious of the northern faction." Sun Lang turned to look at Qi Guanyin. "If you're envious, you can join us." "It's not the same." Qi Guanyin sighed. "It's not the same anymore. Everything can no longer be restarted. That person is no longer here. The war is over." Sun Lang glanced at him. Just as he was about to speak, his expression changed slightly. He said in a low voice, "We're here." Hearing this, Qi Guanyin immediately rushed to the top of the hill in front. He crouched down and held his breath. Under the moonlight, he saw a small tent on top of a small hill in front of him, and her, who he missed dearly. Chapter 465. It was late at night. On the dark hill, there was a small bonfire. Next to the bonfire, there was a small tent. Next to the tent, a weak woman stood opposite the blazing, scorching angel armor. Although the sky was dark and they were far away, Qi Guanyin still saw the scene over there clearly with his eyesight. He recognized the figure that he couldn't be more familiar with. He almost wanted to take out his monarch weapon and rush forward to save his wife. However, a hand suddenly pressed down on his shoulder. Sun Lang's voice was transmitted into the general's ears. "Don't be rash." Qi Guanyin felt as if a mountain was on his shoulder. He struggled slightly, but he couldn't get rid of it at all. The general was shocked and said telepathically, "What are you doing?" Sun Lang let go of his hand and observed the two people on the hill with him. He smiled and said, "Let's listen to what they have to say." Qi Guanyin frowned and said, "The terrain here is not strange. The sound will disperse when it reaches here. How can we hear it? If we get close, we might be discovered by them." Sun Lang smiled casually and said, "The wind is rising." Then the wind really rose. The wind blew from the other side and sent the sound waves that should have dispersed. Qi Guanyin looked at Sun Lang in surprise and said, Sun Lang smiled and said, "What a coincidence. The ability to control the wind." Qi Guanyin said in a low voice, "Is it your imperial army? Calming storm? Wind butterfly command?" However, he quickly shut his mouth and did not pursue the matter any further. This was because he had discovered something more worthy of his attention. This was because he had heard a voice coming from the wind. Although it had been sent over by the wind and was slightly distorted, he would not mistake this voice and would not forget the tone of the voice. It was because it was his wife. There was a hint of worry in the complaining tone. "Why were you gone for so long? Did everything go well?" She talked to the person who kidnapped her. The tone was very familiar. The voice was very familiar. The content was also very familiar. He seemed to have heard it somewhere before. "Husband, why were you gone for so long this time? Did the battle formation go smoothly?" Unable to hide the joy in her eyes, the beautiful woman held her hand and wiped her dusty face with a handkerchief. She carefully examined her body from top to bottom to see if she was injured or tired. She then said those words with half anger and half love. Qi Guanyin was deeply shocked. Sun Lang stole a glance at Qi Guanyin. Qi Guanyin's expression was complicated but easy to understand. shock, confusion, hesitation, bitterness, and despair. He couldn't bear it and wanted to pat the general's shoulder and say some polite words, but he saw that Qi Guanyin's right hand had already dug deep into the soil beside his hand as he stared at the other side. His eyes were filled with silence after everything had calmed down. As the conversation continued, Blazing Angel's hoarse voice could be heard. Because of a troublesome accident, something unexpected happened. Your plan failed. Madame Wang's voice became anxious. What happened? Blazing Angel sneered. You seem to have overestimated yourself. Your husband isn't as infatuated with you as you think. Your plan to use him to massacre the Zhang family and perish together with Sun Lang didn't work. Qi Guanyin's body suddenly trembled. Sun Lang sighed silently. As the conversation continued, Madame Wang asked in surprise, What happened? Blazing Angel said coldly, I went to your husband's camp. He didn't seem to care about your safety at all. Even when I revealed my identity and said that I kidnapped your wife, he pretended to be stupid and insisted that you were safe and sound. It seems that he can't wait for you to die for no reason so that he can remarry. Madame Wang couldn't hide the shock in her voice. What? This is impossible. Blazing Angel interrupted her words. What's impossible? I heard it with my own ears. He didn't act according to your plan at all. Maybe he already had his suspicions and suspected your identity. Now that you've lost the best opportunity to kill him, let's see how you explain this to Princess. Plan, suspicion, identity, kill him, Empress. Sun Lang turned his head to look. Qi Guanyin had already retracted his gaze and buried his face in the soil like an ostrich. Although he couldn't see, his voice still penetrated his ears, telling him about the conspiracy, betrayal, and deceit. Sun Lang turned back. Madame Wang seemed to be in great shock. She still shook her head and said, No, this is impossible. Do you only know how to say this? Blazing Angel mocked. Is this the result of your years of hard work? If Master had known this would happen, he wouldn't have sent you to get close to Qi Guanyin. After investing so much manpower and resources, this is the result. It's laughable that you thought you had Qi Guanyin under your control. What a joke. Madame Wang seemed to have lost her mind. She snapped, Shut up. What? You did it, and you don't allow me to say it? Blazing Angel said coldly. How should I put it? You persuaded him to join Empress. You persuaded him to learn how to flatter and bribe. You made him believe that only villains can achieve anything in this world. You lured him to do a lot of things that he would never do before. Do you think that you can control him and have something on him in this way? Unfortunately, he changed more thoroughly than you thought. It took 2 steps forward, and the enormous armor looked down at the woman in front of it with a terrifying aura. It said casually, He seems to be more scheming than you think. From the beginning to the end, you seem to be his chess piece. Madame Wang stepped back and almost fell. She shook her head abruptly and shouted, I don't believe it. You have to believe it even if you don't. Your plan has completely failed. Blazing Angel roared. Qi Guanyin is out of your control, and he will even ally with Hu Shouxin, which will cause Master's plan to collapse completely. You ambushed and robbed Blazing Angel to trigger a mutiny in the 2 countries, killed the general of Mingzhou, and created chaos in the north. All of this has collapsed as Qi Guanyin is out of control. It's all because of you. It stared at Madame Wang fiercely and roared. You only have 2 options now. One is to complain like a shrew, and I'll send you back to the capital to be punished by Master. The second is to redeem yourself and come up with another evil plan. Catch Hu Shouxin, Qi Guanyin, the Death Messenger, the Lone Traveler, and that Sun Lang who jumped out of nowhere. Let them kill each other. Madame Wang's mind was in a mess after the series of accidents that night. She said blankly, I don't what? You don't have a heart? Blazing Angel smiled cruelly. Wasn't our previous plan great? Lure your husband to Mingzhou, and then pretend to be killed by me in front of him to trigger his tyrannical anger. Let him massacre the Zhang family and become sworn enemies with Sun Lang until they die together. In this way, we can stay out of it and not be affected by karma. Maybe you can even enjoy everything that Qi Guanyin left behind as his widow. Isn't it beautiful? Madame Wang fell to the ground and stared at Blazing Angel. After a long silence, she said slowly in a bleak tone, "We can. Don't bother." Before Madame Wang's voice died away, she heard a thunderous roar from behind. It was like a tiger roaring in the forest and filled with indescribable grief, fury, and madness. Her heart felt like it had been struck by a hammer. Her mind was blank, and she lost the strength to speak. Madame Wang's face immediately lost all color. The aura of a housekeeper in the general's residence, the temperament of a fierce wife who had tamed her husband into obedience, and the appearance of a proud and noble noblewoman was smashed to pieces at this moment. She revealed an unprecedented paleness and panic. She wanted to run away and never come back. She wanted to bury her head and never open her eyes again. She wanted to explain and speak, but she could not do anything. She could only look at the figure in the darkness. It was both familiar and unfamiliar. She had once thought that she would never see such an expression on her husband's face, as if he was looking at an irreconcilable enemy. Murderous intent overflowed. She opened her pale lips, but only half a word came out. She could not say anything else. Fu! Qi Guanyin stood upright on the top of the mountain. Facing the night wind, he walked down step by step. Step by step, he walked over. He gritted his teeth, and his robes fluttered. Words filled with murderous intent jumped out from between his teeth. What virtue and ability do I have to be pitted by the heavens? Let me see through this evil scheme. The heavens above, the earth below, the heavens and the earth below, the heavens and earth are clear. Qi Guanyin has been muddle-headed all his life and has made mistakes. He has a clear conscience in his life. The only thing he has done in his life is to live up to his fate with his wife. With tears in his eyes, he walked closer step by step and said sternly, "The reason for being husband and wife is the result of 3 previous lives. Only then can they be compatible in this life. Who would have thought that the 2 of us would have different hearts and dreams? Who would have thought that the one sleeping next to us would be a vicious woman?" Madame Wang's eyes were full of panic and pain. She could not use her eloquence to scold her husband. She cried out involuntarily, "Husband, it's not like this, it's not like this." Qi Guanyin looked up to the sky and roared with unspeakable sadness and anger. "It's already like this. Why are you still quibbling? I heard it with my own ears. How can it be fake? Let me ask you, are you from Tensei province? Did Empress order you to kill me? Did you come up with that vicious plan? Did you?" Madame Wang was stunned. She was silent for a long time before she nodded woodenly. "Yes." Qi Guanyin laughed silently as tears rolled down his face. He nodded and said, "Good, good, good. I, Qi Guanyin, am reaping what I sowed. I betrayed my father's teachings and threw myself into the mud, wallowing in the mire with the treacherous officials. My father's teachings are still ringing in my ears. Damn it, damn it." Madame Wang was agitated. She wanted to say something, but at this moment, the equally stunned Blazing Angel finally reacted. He first picked up the sleeping Wang Yin in the tent, and then grabbed towards Madame Wang, shouting, "It's over. Let's go." These words completely ignited the barrel of gunpowder in Qi Guanyin's heart. The Mingzhou general roared, "No one can leave." Amidst the dazzling brilliance and rolling tiger roars, a chain appeared out of nowhere and swept across the sky. At the end of the chain was a sharp dagger. It attacked like a snake and attacked the Blazing Angel who wanted to save Madame Wang. Autumn Cloud Spatial Lock Dragon Sword. The Blazing Angel shouted the name of the Imperial Army. This Hutu divine weapon was incomparably sturdy and could not be stopped by ordinary firearms. Moreover, the chain was as agile as a snake and could not be hit easily. The Blazing Angel pulled out a war blade from his back and slashed at the chain dagger. However, Qi Guanyin attacked in anger. The Imperial Army was unpredictable. How could it block the attack in a hurry? This was a close combat, and it was the weakness of the Blazing Angel armor. Moreover, the other hand was holding the Wang Yin. It only took 3 moves for the blazing angel armor to be knocked out of its hand. The autumn cloud spatial lock moved and wrapped around the right arm of the war armor. The other end wrapped around the right arm of the general and was suddenly shaken. The Imperial Army and Qi Guanyan's minds were connected. They circulated their yuan energy and suddenly flung the heavy, blazing angel armor away. A vast sea of blue light suddenly flashed. A halberd was held in Qi Guanyan's left hand. He roared and pulled back his left arm. His entire body was like a bow that was ready to be shot. Then, he rushed out like an arrow leaving the bow. The tip of the halberd flowed like the waves of the sea. This was Qi Guanyan's other Imperial Army halberd, the red maple, white stone sea halberd. There was only one person left in his eyes. That was the person he loved dearly. That was why he was so angry. That was why his wound was so painful. That was why he was hurt so deeply. All the despair, anger, killing intent, sorrow, and life were contained in this move. The raging anger urged the surging killing intent, pressing forward with an indomitable will. He let out a howl that sounded like he was crying. This strike was so earth-shattering that almost all martial experts had to temporarily avoid its edge. The blazing angel was intimidated by such an imposing aura and did not dare to charge forward. Only her weak body seemed to have forgotten to dodge as she stared blankly at the other party, waiting for this earth-shattering halberd strike. At this moment, a white figure that seemed slow but was actually fast blocked in front of him. He stretched out a finger, and the two enormous forces of Qi madly collided in the air. They opposed each other with equal harshness and produced a world-shaking explosion. Immediately after, the violent power that had lost its target dissipated in all directions. The grass and trees bent low, sand and stones flew, and the ground was carved into a crisscrossing trench. The rolling wind wantonly blew back, and time seemed to have stopped. After an unknown amount of time, that indomitable move finally lost its target. Qi Guanyan suddenly leaned back, turned around in the air, and landed steadily on the ground. He withdrew his chain and protected his body with his halberd and assumed a battle stance. Sun Lang stood in front of him. His clothes fluttered in the wind. His entire body was spotlessly clean. Looking at Qi Guanyan, who seemed to have sunk into madness, he sighed silently. The general held the Imperial Army tightly. Violent force gathered in his body. Qi Guanyan's eyes were scarlet red. He stared fixedly at Sun Lang. His killing intent was wanton. He said harshly, "Why are you blocking me? This is for your own good." Sun Lang flicked the blood off his fingertip. Looking at Qi Guanyan, he said calmly, "From my life experience, it's best not to kill people when you lose control of your anger." Chapter 466. That earth-shattering strike was blocked by Sun Lang. The shockwaves slowly dissipated, and the sand and stones that were stirred up fell to the ground. Everything fell into silence again. Sun Lang stood with his hands behind his back. His expression was calm. Qi Guanyan's murderous eyes finally moved away from his face. On the other hand, Madame Wang seemed to have recovered from her shock. In just a few breaths, she made a round in front of the king of Hell's palace and finally realized what had just happened. The woman took a step back and almost fell to the ground. She looked at her husband in disbelief. 2 to 4 hours ago, they were still whispering to each other, but now, before she could say anything, tears fell from her eyes. She said with a trembling voice, You want to kill me." The Imperial Army in Qi Guanyan's hands buzzed. He said coldly, "What? Am I supposed to forgive you?" Madame Wang smiled sadly and said in a low voice, "So that's how it is." Good, good, good." She took a deep breath, took 2 steps forward, and stood up straight. She wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes and hid her sorrowful expression. She seemed to have become the smart and capable housekeeper of the general's residence again. Madame Wang clenched her teeth and looked at her husband, who was full of murderous intent. She said calmly, "Since the grudge is irreconcilable and we hate each other, I don't need to pretend to be a young woman and cry and beg for mercy. Since you have been wronged and can't control your anger, today is a good time in the wilderness. There's no one around, so there's no need to expose your family's dirty linen. You can settle your grudges as you please. Qi Guanyan's anger rose again after being stopped by Sun Lang. He was so angry that he laughed. You were the one who was cruel and had bad intentions first. You're about to die, but you still don't know how to repent. Madame Wang said coldly. So what if I repent? Will you forgive me? Qi Guanyin was so angry that his entire body trembled, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. However, before he could say anything, Blazing Angel, who had been thrown away, rushed over and shouted at Qi Guanyin. If you hadn't been nominally attached to Heavenly Policy Palace all these years, yet you've been refusing to follow Master's orders, picking and choosing, and never submitting wholeheartedly, why would Master have the desire to kill you? You used to be a stubborn and low-ranking military official who didn't know how to behave. You want to become a great general with your own ability? Don't even think about it in 1,000 years. Its visor shone with a terrifying crimson light as it stared fearlessly at Qi Guanyin and said sternly, What? Are you not convinced? You were able to become the great general of Mingzhou because of my master's support and Tensei province's assistance. Also, your wife has been advising you for more than 10 years. What's wrong? Do you regret it? Are you going back on your word? Qi Guanyin's killing intent grew even stronger. His gaze was cold, but he had no interest in arguing with the Blazing Angel. At this point, it was pointless to waste words. The great general's eyes were full of killing intent and hatred. He looked at his wife, who had supported him for more than 10 years without saying a word. Madame Wang also looked back at him stubbornly. She clenched her fists tightly and trembled slightly. The two stared at each other for a long time, but the killing intent in Qi Guanyin's eyes never subsided. He opened his cracked lips and said in a voice as cold as a piece of iron, Scram! Everyone present was startled. Qi Guanyin tightly gripped his weapon, his tone unwavering. These 10 years of being an extremely high official, enjoying great wealth and glory, although it wasn't what I wanted, it was still used by me. This is my karma. This is my retribution. Seeing that you've worked hard these 10 years, seeing that the Empress concubine has supported me for these 10 years, this time I won't kill you. He looked up at the sky and repeated, Scram. Scram far, far away. Scram back to the imperial capital and never appear in front of me again. You won't be so lucky next time. The Blazing Angel seemed to be relieved. It seemed like he wanted to say something and then run away. However, Madame Wang spoke first. Tonight is your last chance. Killing you is my mission and the Blazing Angel's order. Even if you let me go today, we won't return to the imperial capital immediately, because this means that the plan has failed. Even if you let me go today, I will still stay here and be your enemy. Are you sure you want to do this? The next time we meet, I won't be waiting for you to kill me. Qi Guanyin closed his eyes and said calmly, I told you, you won't be so lucky next time. Madame Wang looked at her husband with a complicated expression and nodded. Okay. You will regret this. Qi Guanyin, you will regret this. The Blazing Angel didn't seem to want to complicate matters. He pulled Madame Wang over and the ejector roared. At this time, Sun Lang turned around and said with a smile, Did I say you can leave? The Blazing Angel's heart trembled. Just Qi Guanyin alone was difficult to deal with. Just now, the other party's terrifying halberd had revealed its sharpness. Even though he hadn't faced it directly, he was still forced to retreat by its momentum. Such a terrifying attack had actually been received by this Sun Lang barehanded. This person's martial arts were truly unimaginable. It seemed that he hadn't used his full strength in the short confrontation at the general's residence. Too many accidents had happened tonight. He didn't want to fight with Sun Lang at all. Thus, the Blazing Angel shouted at Qi Guanyin, General Qi, is this your plan? Qi Guanyin said coldly, Let them go. Sun Lang rolled his eyes. The three of you together can't beat me. Why should I listen to you? Qi Guanyin repeated. His tone was as cold as steel, but there was a trace of weakness and sadness. He said softly, Let them go. Sun Lang still wanted to say something, but Qi Guanyin's body swayed, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Wang Shi's expression changed slightly. She subconsciously said, "Ma." However, she didn't say it in the end. This was because Qi Guanyan's cold gaze shot over. It was so cold and heartless that she directly swallowed the word back into her throat. The blazing angel saw the situation extremely quickly. He immediately judged the situation. Even if Qi Guanyin was injured and vomiting blood, he had no confidence in beating Sun Lang. It was better not to complicate matters. He grabbed Wang Shi and didn't forget to take the royal seal with him. He soared into the sky amidst the surging waves of heat from the ejector and charged towards the south. Sun Lang glanced at him but didn't chase after him in the end. Once the blazing angel and Wang Shi were far away, Qi Guanyin finally couldn't hold on any longer. The imperial army in his hands dissipated into starlight. His body seemed to have lost all support. His face was pale as he fell to the ground. Sun Lang reached out and pressed down on his wrist. A moment later, he shook his head. Why bother? Qi Guanyin didn't say anything. He simply lay on his back and looked at the night sky. Tears flowed out of the corners of his eyes. Your emotions were agitated, and your internal breath was shaken. This violated the taboo of your cultivation technique in the first place. You also forced yourself to attack. Your meridians and organs have been injured. Your strength has been greatly reduced. Sun Lang stood up and looked down at him. If that blazing angel comes again, I'm afraid that you won't be able to resist him. The advantages of the blazing angel armor are its high endurance, high explosive power, and various combat methods. It can appear and disappear unpredictably. Moreover, there's someone who knows you better than anyone else and is advising behind the scenes. His thoughts were directly exposed. Qi Guanyin closed his eyes in pain. Moreover, after this matter is exposed, with Empress's personality, she definitely won't let you go. Just because you're not dead, you're going to rely on her enemy to deal with her. She won't let you go just because of this possibility. Sun Lang added, You've worked for her for more than 10 years. She has a lot of materials that can be used against you. Qi Guanyin closed his eyes and said in a flat tone, Are you trying to rope me in to join you again? Why not? This is called timely help. It's mutually beneficial. Sun Lang said with a smile. If your former backer wants to deal with you, how can you resist? Someone has to help you. Let alone Empress. I think you won't be able to pass the Blazing Angels test. What? Have you given up hope and are waiting to be killed? Qi Guanyin sighed and said, I'm already tired. I've already prepared for the worst. All this glory, all this power, they're all like clouds in the sky. If they're gone, then they're gone. Sun Lang squatted down and pointed at Qi Guanyin's heart. Then doesn't it hurt here? Don't you hate? The person who made you hide in your bones. The person who made you abandon your father's teachings and the beliefs in your heart. The person who made you slowly change. The person who made you waste more than 10 years. The person who lied to you. The person who wanted to kill you. The person who made you enemies. The person who lied to you for more than 10 years. The person who manipulated all this behind the scenes. Don't you hate? Qi Guanyin clenched his fists. He couldn't say that he didn't hate. That halberd strike just now was filled with hatred and full of strength. How happy, how tyrannical. His beloved wife of more than 10 years. At the moment when the truth was revealed and engraved in his heart was driven by the desire to kill. He stabbed furiously, and the anger condensed at the tip of the halberd couldn't be extinguished even with all the water in the 3 rivers and 5 lakes. This was his beloved wife of more than 10 years. His heart was still filled with such anger. And the person who plotted, manipulated all this behind the scenes, the high and mighty mastermind who treated everyone as a chess piece, how could he escape? He suddenly opened his eyes, and a fierce, murderous intent appeared in his eyes. Sun Lang said indifferently, Good, this is the look in your eyes. Instead of having a dead heart and being mediocre and cowardly, why don't you set a fire? You don't want to be an official anymore, and you don't want to live anymore. You have no desires, so you have no scruples. You have no regrets, so you have nothing to fear. Since it's already like this, why not do something earth-shattering? First of all, the person who harmed you to this point can't be let off easily. Qi Guanyin slowly sat up and then stood up. His face was still somewhat weak, and he looked at Sun Lang. After a moment, he suddenly said, "You also have hatred in your heart." Sun Lang nodded calmly. "Yes, and it's much deeper than yours. The flames of anger have never stopped burning. In the bottom of my heart, I can feel its heat, roar and roar, just like." He lowered his head slightly, and the shadow blocked his vision, just like the breath from hell. Qi Guanyin asked, "Is it directed at Empress?" Sun Lang didn't answer. He took 2 steps, looked at the deep night sky, and said indifferently, "When will revenge end? Hatred will devour people, and the feeling of successful revenge is empty. Requiting evil with good, giving up the butcher's knife and becoming a Buddha. I don't believe in any of these." I don't know who said these words, and I don't know if they have experienced hatred, but I have, so I don't believe in it. I only believe in one thing. He turned around and looked at Qi Guanyin. I only believe that good and evil will be rewarded. Whoever does something bad will be punished. If a person does something bad, then that person will bear the consequences. If an entire country does something bad, then that country will bear the consequences. This isn't a fairy tale world. This world is real and cruel. So cruel that you have to admit that sometimes forgiveness is the greatest sin, because some people just have to be hacked to death. He laughed. Why not do it? Your sadness, your anger, your difficulties, no one will understand. No one will speak for you. No one will protect you. If that's the case, then we can only pay an eye for an eye, blood for blood. Is there a better way? Although his tone was calm and not agitated, Qi Guanyin could feel a bone-piercing chill. Under the calm exterior of the person in front of him, there was an unknown amount of blazing flames. It was as if he was careless, he would be burned to ashes. For some reason, he blurted out, "In this world, there are things that can surpass hatred." As soon as he said this, he secretly regretted it in his heart. He didn't expect Sun Lang to look thoughtful. In the end, he even nodded and said softly, "Perhaps. I have indeed met a few, but everyone is different. People were different, their experiences were different, and so was their hatred." The two were speechless for a moment. But soon, Sun Lang laughed. "All right, let's not talk about these annoying things. Forget about her. Live a good life with me." "Bah, live a good life with me. What do you plan to do now?" Hearing this, Qi Guanyin's face fell. He was completely at a loss. "You're injured. Take care of your wounds first." Sun Lang waved his hand. "Let's go. We're going to Ming Province." Qi Guanyin let out an ah. "Ming Province? Why are we going there? It's not far from Huqing." Sun Lang rolled his eyes and said, "You let the blazing angel go. What if it attacks my house? I don't have time to waste here with you. Let's go." Qi Guanyin hesitated. "Then let's part ways here." Sun Lang grinned hideously. "Follow me back through the night and climb over the wall into Ming Province before the city gate is opened. You will still be knocked out by me. And when the city gate is opened in the morning, I will drag you into the city under the watchful eyes of the people of Ming Province. You can choose one of the 2 options." Qi Guanyin said angrily, "You're so unreasonable. My subordinates are still looking for me. And in the residence, you don't even want to be an official anymore. Why are you going back to Huqing? Their lives have nothing to do with you. All right, stop glaring. We're going to Huqing now. I'll give you 2 hours to settle your affairs. Then we'll leave." "What, not enough time?" "Then 1 hour should be enough, right? If it's not enough, then we'll wait for another moment." "Damn, you have so many problems." Just like that, the general, who was in a weakened state due to emotional trauma, was temporarily subdued by the Master Ball. Temporarily. Chapter 467. Qi Guanyin's face was the most useful pass in all of Mingzhou. Under his lead, the 2 of them directly called for the gates of Huqing to be opened. They called for fast horses from the city guards and galloped all the way to the inner city. They first went to the inner city army camp to make arrangements, then rushed to the general's mansion without stopping. The sound of the horses' hooves had already alerted the guards. Recognizing their general, 2 personal guards came forward and pulled the horse's head, inviting the 2 to dismount. Qi Guanyin waved his hand, allowing them to lead the horse away. He stood where he was, gazing at the dark red vermilion door, the huge doornail, and the imposing inscribed board. He sank into silence. This mansion symbolized power and glory. It carried the memories and support of the two of them. From a military officer who inherited his father's position to a provincial general who was at the pinnacle of his position, only he knew what he had sacrificed and what he had gained. And now, this pavilion, which was obtained through compromise and bending the knee, was on the verge of collapse. The knot in his heart for more than 10 years was finally about to be broken in the most intense way. Chi Guanyan's eyes were blank and sorrowful. He saw countless turbulence, pain, and departures that were about to happen here. Because his wife's departure was only the beginning. Tensei Province's hostility, Empress's murderous intent, and the enemy's malice would all transform into angry waves that rushed toward the general's mansion. Everything was on the verge of collapse. Sun Lang said leisurely, "Actually, you can still continue to be the general of Mingzhou." Chi Guanyin said indifferently, "How can I continue? All of the family's affairs, from the appointment of personnel, to the greetings and deliveries, to the harvest of land and shops, to all kinds of expenses, everything is managed by her. The internal affairs of the general's mansion are in perfect order under her management. If she leaves, who would do all of this?" Sun Lang rolled his eyes. "You're hopeless. Think about it. From now on, you can go to brothels whenever you want. You can take concubines whenever you want. If you want to kidnap women, you can kidnap women. You can sleep with any of the maids in the mansion that you like. No one will care about your money pouch anymore. No one will order you around. How great is that? You, on the other hand, were so resolute before, but now you're starting to think of her." Chi Guanyin sighed and said, "Also, during festivals, the ministers in the capital, the officials in Tensei Province, the civil and military officials in Mingzhou, what this lord likes, what gifts that colleague gives, these people's birthdays, their parents' birthdays, a lot of people's affairs, and all kinds of etiquette are stored in her heart." Sun Lang waved his hand and said, "Why do you care about such trivial matters? We're all going to, ahem, we're good bureaucrats of the new era with ideals and aspirations. With the 8 honors and 8 disgraces as our guiding ideology, we're going to vigorously develop a clean and honest work style. We're going to crack down on such corruption. All the civil servants in Ming Province need to undergo a major rectification and let these corrupt officials know who's in charge in Ming Province right now." Hearing that, Chi Guanyin glanced at Sun Lang and said, "I thought that the northern faction wanted to rope me in as a backup to increase the weight of your words in the imperial court. Now it seems that you're quite ambitious. Instead of letting your imagination run wild, why don't you get through the obstacle in front of you first? You let your wife go, but your wife doesn't intend to let you go." Sun Lang smiled and said, "For example, since your wife has been in charge of all the internal affairs of the general's mansion all these years, she must have a lot of evidence of the general's mansion's cheating and bribery in her hands. If it falls into the hands of the censorate, even the emperor can't protect you. How big of a piece of meat is Ming Province?" Chi Guanyin originally wanted to find out more about Sun Lang's background, but he didn't expect that this guy would backhand him and stab him in the heart. For a moment, he choked and couldn't say anything. He was silent for a moment, and then shook his head with a bitter smile. If she was prepared, she would definitely have left a copy. I would never have found it, so why bother looking for it? Sun Lang snorted and said, "Your negative thinking without resistance is very dangerous, little comrade. You don't know what happened to Zhang Xiaoshui, but think about it. If you were arrested and escorted to the imperial capital's celestial prison, waiting for the joint trial of the 3 departments, and the person who came in to deliver food was your heartless wife, then the whole world would know that you were stabbed by your wife. Think about it. How many Jade stories would evolve? Think about it. Wouldn't that scene be cowardly? Wouldn't that be exciting? Wouldn't that be a pleasant surprise?" No matter what, the scene was indeed a little too tragic. The general's expression changed slightly, and he was just short of saying, "I'm an idiot in divination again." He said coldly, "I've said it before. The next time I see her, I won't let her go." Sun Lang clicked his tongue, and then waved the young pioneer's hand knife as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. He said darkly, The general is decisive in killing. I admire you. Since that's the case, let's have a drill first. Your wife's family must be in your house. Quickly gather the executioners and take drastic measures to kill them all. Otherwise, if your wife sneaks in and does something, they will definitely be her guides. Qi Guanyin glanced at him and walked forward. The doorman hurriedly pushed the door open. The Grand General gave him a slight nod, then stepped over the tall threshold and walked in. Sun Lang followed behind him. The two of them walked through the porch and entered the front yard. The lights flickered in the distance. The old butler led a group of people and hurried over with lanterns. After seeing Qi Guanyin, the old housekeeper bowed. He glanced at Sun Lang and carefully asked, "Master, where's Madam?" Sun Lang was afraid that Qi Guanyin would be hurt by the scene, so he gave a thumbs up and rushed to answer. She got on the plane. Qi Guanyin was silent for a moment, then said to the old housekeeper, "Uncle Chong, I have to go out for some business. I'll leave the matters of the house to you. Now is a time of trouble, so it's best to be careful. If Madam comes back during this time, don't ask too much, don't pester her. Be courteous and stay alert. I've already sent troops to station in the house. Uncle Chong, you have to be careful of your own safety." With every word Qi Guanyin said, the old steward's expression grew more serious. When the general finished his instructions, he sighed deeply and nodded. This old servant understands. "General, you take care of yourself as well." Qi Guanyin said quietly, "Uncle Chong, I was wrong." The old housekeeper was slightly taken aback. Then he waved his hand and sighed. "I don't blame you. It's always easier to say than to do. You just chose a different path from your father. Whether this is right or wrong is hard to say." Qi Guanyin's expression changed. He looked in surprise at this old housekeeper who was his servant in name, but who was as close as uncle and nephew. "I've only recently come to understand this principle a little." The old housekeeper shook his head sadly. "You were wrong, but your martial arts were outstanding. You protected the land and pacified the people. You faced the sky demon and awed the world. Your military achievements surpassed your father's by 100 times. Your father was unyielding his whole life, but he wasn't of great use. He led troops into bloody battles and killed the sky demon, but he couldn't even compare to you. Who is right and who is wrong?" He looked at the person in front of him. From a baby born into the world, he became a great general. He watched as this child walked a completely different path from his father, a thorny path filled with criticism and struggle. The confusion and perplexity in your heart is actually similar to your father's. When he left, he also wondered if he should have been more tactful in this life. Just like you now, although you have achieved success and fame, you wonder if you should have been more resolute back then. Actually, neither of you are wrong. What is wrong is this world. It makes people with ability need to curry favor in order to display their ability. It makes people who are hardworking need to be shrewd in order to obtain results. It makes good people need to use even worse methods to defeat bad people. The old housekeeper said sadly, "If you're tired, then rest. Don't torture yourself." Qi Guanyin said softly, "Uncle Chong." The old housekeeper looked at him warmly. Suddenly, he turned his head and bowed deeply to Sun Lang. "Sir, my master has a weak heart, but is stubborn. Sometimes he will go down a dead end. If he accidentally offends you, please forgive him. This old servant will be eternally grateful." Sun Lang looked at the old housekeeper who was kowtowing on the ground. He thought for a while before finally nodding and saying, "This old man has some eyesight. Don't worry, you won't kowtow for nothing." Qi Guanyin had already helped the old housekeeper up and glared at Sun Lang. Sun Lang smiled as if nothing had happened. "All right, after arranging the funeral matters, let's set out." The old housekeeper ordered people to bring over 4 good horses to change horses. These were the fine horses of the general's Fu. Their quality was even better than the treasures of Marquis Jinggan Fu. He personally sent the 2 people out of the Fu. Looking at his master on the horse, he calmly said, "Master, please take care of yourself. This old servant will stay here to guard the house and await your return. There are many good women in the world. The word love, although it is temporarily mesmerizing, There will be a day when it is completely seen through. When the old housekeeper said this, he sighed and couldn't continue. Qi Guanyin was silent for a while on the horse. In the end, he took a deep look at the magnificent lintel of the general's fu. Spurring his horse, he galloped away. Sun Lang looked at the old housekeeper with a smile. If I were you, I would immediately go and take out your family's great general's command talisman. Overnight, I would gather soldiers, fake a general's order, open Hongqing's armory, and bring out more than 100,000 caddies of gunpowder. Then I would send thousands of soldiers to dig underground tunnels and hidden holes. Fill all the gunpowder in the places you think should be filled, then wait in formation. At that time, no matter if it was your family's madam or some troublesome iron giant, without another word, I would blow them all up into the sky. This is called cutting the weeds and pulling out the roots. The old housekeeper was clearly shocked and said in shock, This, Sun Lang laughed and didn't pay any more attention to him. He pulled on the reins. Naughty horse, let's go. The old housekeeper stood alone on the wide and lonely road in front of the fu, watching the two leave. Unknowingly, his face was already covered in tears. He sighed, Sin. On this side, Sun Lang had already caught up with Qi Guanyin. The great general didn't even turn his head and said indifferently, What did you say to me, Uncle Chong? Sun Lang laughed. You the great passed by the house 3 times but didn't enter. When you entered the house, you only said a few words in the front yard and then hurriedly ran away. You're quite similar to the ancient sages. Qi Guanyin said without batting an eyelid. What do you mean? Who is you the great? Sun Lang laughed. He's my enemy. He controls the flood. I release the flood. Speaking of which, Qi Guanyin, just now I thought back to the soap opera scene where you husband and wife turn against each other. Although it sounds very exaggerated, I still feel that there's something wrong. What do you think? At the mention of this matter, Qi Guanyin's expression became very impatient. He said unhappily, I don't know. Sun Lang said, I'll say in advance that I don't care. We don't have any friendship. You probably still have doubts in your heart and don't trust me, so you lied to me and hid things from me. It's all human nature. But for what I've experienced before, he turned to the great general and laughed. Those who lied to me and hid things from me at the beginning all met with problems that they couldn't solve in the end. They delayed the time and caused irreversible consequences. Even if I extended a helping hand, there is nothing I could do. Do as you see fit. Don't say that I didn't warn you. Qi Guanyin's eyes flashed a trace of light. He said calmly, I don't know what you're talking about. Sun Lang laughed. Up to you. How do you think your wife is going to deal with you? The great general snorted. She probably found a copy of the evidence and secretly returned to the capital. Tensei province will lead the impeachment and the imperial censorate will follow suit. She wants to take me down. Sun Lang's eyes lit up. He laughed. Wrong. Tensei province's order isn't to kill you, but to instigate chaos in Mingzhou. Either Li Fire invades or Jinzhou dies. What they want is chaos. If they want to impeach you, why would they need you to step down? Tensei province has enough evidence to take you down 800 times. If they dare to run back to the capital like this, the Empress will skin them alive. Qi Guanyin frowned slightly. Sun Lang revealed a meaningful smile. So, do you understand now, Great General Qi? The contest between you and your wife is still long. If you have something to say, tell me now. The great general said indifferently, There's no need for you to worry. I have nothing to say. Good, then let's do business. Let's go to Mingzhou first and settle this matter. Sun Lang grabbed the reins and said casually, I've been busy the whole night since I came to Huqing from Mingzhou. I almost caught all the enemies in one fell swoop, but in the end, I still let your wife and the Seraph escape. I did all this to invite you to join us, General Qi. Don't let me waste my time. Qi Guanyin cupped his hands. Thank you. Sun Lang sneered and said, Just a word of thanks won't do. You know why I'm here. I've been working hard for your relationship problems. I'm not here to be a lay phone. I'll say the ugly words first. My methods are the same as that of the woman from the Heavenly Policy Mansion. If you make me work for nothing, you'll be happy for the rest of your life. Qi Guanyin snorted and said nothing. The two left Huqing and rushed to Mingzhou overnight. At the same time, a black shadow landed in a hidden courtyard west of Huqing. The seraph placed Wang Shi and the imperial seal on the ground and said in a low, muffled voice, "Why are you back?" Wang Shi's face still had traces of tears. She looked up at the great general's residence in the darkness and said calmly, "To get something." Chapter 468. I'm going to get something. Hearing this, the blazing angel frowned. Get what? We're already at this stage of life and death. Do you still want to go back and tidy up your belongings? If you're caught by those two, you won't be able to escape. Wang Shi sighed softly. He won't come back until everything is settled. The blazing angel coldly said, "Are you so sure?" Madame Wang looked at it indifferently. Now that things have come to this, do you have any better ideas? The blazing angel said without batting an eyelid. Do you have any other plans? Wang Shi said indifferently. All these years, all the internal affairs of the general's residence have been handled by me. There are accounts books that record many shameful things in the general's residence. If these things fall into the hands of someone, they will become a death sentence for Qi Guanyin. Even His Majesty won't be able to protect him. The blazing angel's helmet flashed, and he suddenly said, "There's actually such a thing. Furthermore, you're really heartless. You don't even care about the relationship between husband and wife." Wang Shi's eyes flashed with sadness and pain. Then, she said resolutely, "When he stabbed me with his halberd, he didn't care about the relationship between husband and wife. Since he's determined to kill me, I can't just wait for death. The next time we meet, it will be a battle to the death. I'm not his match in martial arts, so why can't I play to my strengths and avoid my weaknesses?" The blazing angel didn't comment and let out a hoarse laugh. He looked at the royal seal lying at his feet and said with a playful tone, "How do you want to deal with your precious brother?" The woman's expression turned serious. She stood in front of her unconscious brother like an old hen protecting its young. She said fiercely, "This has nothing to do with him. If you dare to hurt my brother, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost." The powerful blazing angel naturally didn't care about such a threat. However, it wasn't worth it to become enemies with Wang Shi for an ant. After all, the two were allies now, and the other party was still useful. The more Wang Shi was worried about her brother, the more valuable the royal seal was. Thus it smiled, "I don't have any ill intentions, but it's not a good idea to bring him along every time. If he had gone all out against Qi Guanyin and Sun Lang just now, I'm afraid your brother would have been shaken to death by the shockwaves of the battle. It's better to arrange for him to be in a safe place so that he won't be restricted." Wang Shi hesitated for a moment, then shook her head and said, "No, there's no safe place in Mingzhou anymore. Moreover, I've already fallen out with Qi Guanyin. It's hard to say whether I'll live or die. If I die, what will happen to my brother? We need to think of a foolproof plan to protect him." The blazing angel was very impatient when he heard this. He knew a little about what had happened before. This younger brother, who had tricked his sister and brother-in-law, was a complete troublemaker. Now, he was even a burden to them. If it was based on his temperament, he would have already shot him to death. However, he had to consider Wang Shi's thoughts. It said coldly, "According to what you're saying, your younger brother has to be sent out of Ming province?" Wang Shi's eyes flashed, and she nodded slightly. "That's right. Ming province is no longer safe. The only thing we can do now is to send my younger brother to the capital and take shelter under Empress's wings." The blazing angel sneered. "You're daydreaming. You've messed up Master's task and are now working hard to fix it. You still have the face to send your family to the capital and ask Master to take care of them? You're really thick-skinned." Madame Wang said indifferently, "It's indeed a little shameless to send my younger brother to the capital empty-handed. However, if he brings back some important things and works a little, then there's no telling." The blazing angel was startled. Then he understood and clicked his tongue. "If you treat him half as well as you treat your younger brother, then what happened just now wouldn't have happened. Qi Guanyin might even be willing to die for you." Wang Shi looked at the huge and ferocious armor with a complicated gaze. Her gaze couldn't penetrate the sturdy plates, so she couldn't see the body inside the armor. She didn't know the true face of the person operating this terrifying weapon. However, she confirmed one thing. You really are a heartless person. Wang Shi sighed softly. You don't understand anything. The blazing angel snorted coldly and warned, I'll say the ugly words first. You know Master's methods. Her kindness and generosity might allow her to forgive a failure, but she will never forgive a traitor. You better not play any tricks. Wang Shi only sneered at this threat. She said, Let's go. The blazing angel didn't say anything else. He supported Wang Shi and brought her to the Dark General's residence. There had been one incident after another tonight, and the guards had been greatly strengthened. However, Madame Wang was, after all, the unquestionable head steward of the manor. Her understanding of the manor was better than almost anyone else's. Under her guidance, even with the blazing angel armor's large and conspicuous body, they were able to avoid all the sentries and arrived at their destination. She said softly, The accounting office is here. I had to register in the most dangerous place. This is usually the safest place. There's a servant on night watch inside. His martial arts aren't high. You guard outside, I'll go in and knock him out. Don't make any noise, and don't kill anyone. The blazing angel looked at the house in front of him and said indifferently, What if the person waiting inside is your husband? Wang Shi smiled sadly. No, since he no longer trusts me, he will be sure that I left a copy of the register. He won't risk coming to the residence to look for it. The blazing angel still wanted to say something, but the shot cannon on his right arm slid out from the wrist guard. He shouted, Someone's coming. Is Madam back? An old voice came from the darkness. This old servant has been waiting for a long time. Wang Shi's expression changed, revealing a panicked expression. She said in a low voice, Uncle Chong. The blazing angel didn't care so much. The shot cannon made a buzzing sound, and a thin wind swirled around the muzzle. He sneered and raised the muzzle, hiding the head and showing the tail. Give me no. Wang Shi reached out her hand to stop him. Don't hurt him. The old butler appeared from the darkness. He looked at Wang Shi with a complicated gaze. He bowed and said slowly, This old servant is happy that Madam is safe and sound. I wonder why you've come in the middle of the night. Wang Shi was stupefied for a moment. She said softly, Uncle Chong, don't call me Madam. When Uncle Chong heard this, there was no surprise on his face. He only sighed and said, Is your love over? Wang Shi smiled bitterly. It's over. There are so many entanglements of gratitude and grudges. It's hard to understand. I can only leave it behind. The king of hell is like a heavy brush, and the judge's eyes are like lightning. The old butler frowned slightly and sighed. Since the love between husband and wife is over, I'm afraid you don't have good intentions for bringing an outsider to the general's residence in the middle of the night, right? Wang Shi gritted her teeth and lowered her head. Uncle Chong, please don't stop me. I really don't want to. If it were any other time, this old servant would have tried to stop them, even at the cost of my life. But before Master left, he told me that if I saw you, Madam, I shouldn't ask or pester you, and I should be polite. The old butler sighed. This old servant didn't understand at first, but now I do. Wang Shi felt as if she was struck by lightning. She said in a trembling voice, He said that? The old butler nodded. So, this old servant predicted that Madam would come here tonight. So, this old servant sent away the servants and guards on duty. I waited here alone just to ask Madam personally. The blazing angel was very impatient. He was afraid that Wang Shi would change her mind because of this old man's words. That would be very bad, he shouted. Why are you talking nonsense with him? Today, we have to kill him to prevent him from ruining our plans. Hearing this, the old butler was neither angry nor afraid. He maintained his bowing posture and said indifferently, I'll let this evil guest know that my master hasn't gone far. There are also elite soldiers guarding the residence. If you want to cause a ruckus, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Hearing this, the blazing angel's heart trembled. He shouted, Where did your master go? The old butler lowered his head and said submissively, "You must be joking. As a servant, how can I ask about my master's matters?" With a flash of red light, a pitch-black armed blade popped out of his left arm. The blazing angel went around Wang Shi and instantly sped up. He approached silently and said coldly, "Then you can die." The edge of the blade was close to the body. The murderous aura was oppressive. The sharp-armed blade seemed to be able to easily tear apart the old man's broken body. The old butler sighed softly. He stretched out his wrinkled and calloused finger at the right time and flicked the side of the blade. With a buzzing sound, the assassination that was bound to succeed was deviated to the side. The old butler backhanded his palm and hit the blazing angel's chest with an unparalleled force. The blazing angel's body stagnated, and then he borrowed the force to float back. He said indifferently, as expected of the divine weapon of the Lihuan nation, "A set of armor is comparable to my lifetime of cultivation." The blazing angel had misjudged and missed his attack. He was so angry that he laughed. "Old thing, you have some skills. But do you think that with your ability, you can escape from me?" Wang Shi said angrily, "Enough. You have already alerted the general's residence." The blazing angel stared blankly for a moment. Through the enhanced information receiving device, he could hear the ripples that appeared in the calm general's residence. Just now, the finger that the old butler used to block the sudden attack released the buzzing sound of flesh and metal colliding. Even though the sound was soft, that unique sound was already no different from the rumbling of thunder in some people's ears. Qi Guanyin and Sun Lang were not here. The proud Yin Wei did not think that there was an enemy in the residence that could threaten him. But he had Wang Shi beside him, who was a burden. Moreover, he did not come here to kill people. Seeing that a few people were awakened by the strange sound and were discussing the matter with their companions, the blazing angel did not know what to do at the moment. Wang Shi was indeed an extraordinary woman. Without saying anything, she knelt on the ground and bowed 3 times. "Uncle Chong, I dare not forget the kindness of taking care of me in the past. It's just that I can no longer repay it in this life. Now that fate has made a fool of me, please be merciful and fulfill my wish. In my next life, I will definitely repay your kindness. Sorry for the offense." She stretched out her right hand and pointed at the study. She said sternly, "Bring me in." Hearing this, the blazing angel reacted quickly. He grabbed Wang Ying with his left hand, and the thrusters roared. He directly broke through the 2 wooden doors and rushed into the accounting room. For a moment, there was a loud rumble. Countless bookshelves collapsed and exploded. Countless accounting books were torn to pieces. The old butler did not hesitate. He roared and issued a warning. At the same time, he rushed into the accounting room. But in the next moment, his expression changed. He suddenly retreated. His figure flashed and changed his position. Suddenly, the place where he was standing was covered by a waterfall of bullets. With his body of flesh and blood, he could not withstand the power of guns and cannons. After being blocked for a few breaths, Wang Shi's low voice came from inside. "Found him. Let's go." With a crack, the blazing angel broke the roof beam, lifted the tiles, and rushed into the sky. At the same time, the noise just now attracted the attention of the guards of the general's residence. Countless figures rushed in this direction. But Wang Shi had already succeeded. The blazing angel laughed and had already rushed into the sky. He flew into the distance, leaving behind a cold ultimatum. "Old thing, you dodge quickly. We'll settle this debt later." The blazing angel combat equipment of the highest grade gave the pilot unparalleled speed and mobility. Just the fact that it could fly was enough to make the vast majority of martial artists furious. By the time the others arrived, the blazing angel had already taken Wang Shi far away. The old butler stood on the empty ground that was filled with holes from the dust. Looking at the night sky, he sighed softly and said in an almost inaudible voice, "This is truly a sin." An anxious voice asked by his ear, "Uncle Chong, what happened?" The loyal servant, an old man beside the general, did not tell anyone about the madam's matter. He gave the order to increase the strength of the defense, add hidden sentries and traps, and fix the flaws in the defense. After the arrangements were made, the old man put his hands behind his back. With a sigh, he slowly walked into the accounting room that had almost collapsed. The sun and the moon rotated, and time passed. A faint light had already appeared on the horizon. The sky was still filled with stars. Dawn was not far away, and the night was coming to an end. For horses of excellent quality galloped along the official road. Two riders looked into the distance and saw the most majestic and vast city in the north. One of them smiled and said, "We're finally back." The other rider, on the other hand, was not in the mood. He seemed to have a lot on his mind. Hearing the words, he did not reply, as if he was thinking about something. The other person did not find it strange. He urged the horse to speed up. The two of them had been on the road for an entire night, but there was no fatigue on their faces. After all, they were rare martial arts grandmasters in the world. They had almost reached the realm of martial arts. Cultivating immortality was nothing to them. Seeing that Qi Guanyin was unhappy, Sun Lang wanted to cheer him up and liven up the atmosphere. He pointed in a direction and said cheerfully, "Over there is the lakeside where I met your brother-in-law by chance." It directly led to his and your wife's capture, and indirectly led to the terrible things that happened last night. Do you want to go there and reminisce about it? This was simply touching a sore spot. Qi Guanyin's face darkened, and he was about to explode. Sun Lang said earnestly, "You must be very unhappy. You're scolding me for touching a sore spot. Oh, you're just like clothes. You don't know what's good for you. I'm doing this for your own good." Qi Guanyin said unhappily, "You're hitting me when I'm down and stabbing me with a knife. You call this for my own good?" Sun Lang said seriously, "Of course. This is called training your will so that you can be mentally prepared. Don't worry about these small things. More worrying things are still to come." He counted on his fingers, his spittle flying everywhere as he said, "Look, among the forces in Ming province right now, Lord Liu, the prefecture overseer, wants nothing more than to kill you, because of you. Hu Shouxin wants nothing more than to CK you to death, because of you. And the two blazing angels want nothing more than to CK you to death, because of you. And yet you're actually delivering yourself to them. Look, aren't you worried? I'm leaving." Chapter 469. The two first rode their horses to the Willow Pavilion outside Mingzhou. There was a pavilion where the Marquis of Jing'an's Fu had stationed their horses. It was the one that the steward of the Marquis Fu had mentioned when sending Sun Lang and Courier out of the city. The workers there all recognized Sun Lang's appearance and immediately received him with the highest level of courtesy. They received the 4 fine horses and went to wash, cut, and feed them water. The person in charge of the pavilion personally came out to serve them. He could be considered one of the managers of the Marquis Fu, but his rank was a bit low, so he could only manage this shop for now. However, young Lady Zhao had taught him well. Other things aside, he had seen and memorized the appearances of all the civil and military officials in Mingzhou. Thus, he recognized the person beside Sun Lang at a glance. It was Mingzhou's great general, Qi Guanyin. He was speechless on the inside, and his legs immediately turned to jelly. However, he also understood the professionalism of an underling and did not ask about this matter. He only treated Qi Guanyin as an honored guest. He ordered the cook to prepare tea and hot food, as he carefully asked, "Sir, do you need a carriage to enter the city?" Jerky, hot tea, and cold cakes had already been placed on the table as quickly as possible. The cook was still busy in the kitchen. Sun Lang casually picked up a piece of dessert and chewed until it flew everywhere. As he ate, he spat out, "No need, it's too slow. We'll go in ourselves. Hey, young Qi, you should eat some." In a moment, used Qinggong to climb over the wall and enter the city. Qi Guanyin had experienced too many setbacks in life in one night. How would he be in the mood to eat? He waved his hand to decline and said with a frown, "Looking at the sky, the city gates are about to open. Why do we have to fly in?" Sun Lang rolled his eyes and said, "It doesn't matter. I'm not in a hurry. Right now, Mingzhou is under martial law, and the security is 10 times stricter. If you're willing to enter the city with so many people and be recognized, then do whatever you want. My goodness, the person in charge of the pavilion stuck out his tongue in his mind. Daring to speak to the great general like this, he would be killed in one blow. It seemed like this future son-in-law was truly skilled. Qi Guanyin also snorted in dissatisfaction. He glared at Sun Lang, but didn't say anything. After all, Qi Guanyin had never been under Sun Lang's command during the war and had not been poisoned by this grand marshal, so his personality was still more reasonable. He was not used to Sun Lang's carefree way of talking, but it doesn't matter. He'll get used to it sooner or later. In any case, the two of them casually ate some food and immediately got up and rushed towards the direction of the city. With their cultivation of Qinggong, they were originally better than most warhorses. However, using the number 11 bus to rush to the city was unavoidably low and tiring. Their white clothes were also dirted faster. However, they didn't have to care so much now. It was already early in the morning, and many people had gathered outside the city. They were waiting for the curfew to end and the gates to open so that they could enter the city to make a living. The two of them looked at each other from afar. Qi Guanyin's gaze had already moved elsewhere. The great general's gaze lingered on a section of the city wall for a moment before he pointed and said, "Over there." As expected of a general from Mingzhou, he was indeed knowledgeable. He immediately found a flaw in the defense. After the two of them climbed up the battlements like geckos and slid down the wall, Qi Guanyin snorted again and said, "The general of Mingzhou is not capable enough." Sun Lang dug his nose and said, "Didn't I sneak into the inner city of Hongsheng without being discovered by anyone?" Qi Guanyin was stunned and said in disbelief, "Didn't you enter the city through the air with the death messenger?" Sun Lang said proudly, "I am an outstanding assassin. Why would I do something that goes against the aesthetics of stealth when there is a heavily guarded city? Of course, I'll use my stealth technique and swagger over from the ground." Qi Guanyin still did not believe him. "Impossible. I personally ordered the security of Hongsheng to be increased these 2 days. You can kill your way in, but you definitely can't sneak in. As long as there is even the slightest movement, the soldiers will be alerted." Sun Lang revealed a mysterious smile. "Why don't we make a bet? Let's bet that I really have a way to bypass the tight security of your soldiers and break through the inner walls of Hongsheng at night." Great General Qi did not know that he was about to die. With the professionalism and pride of a top military official in the empire, he nodded heavily and said, "Deal. What are the stakes?" Sun Lang smiled and said, "I haven't thought about it yet. How about this? If you lose, you have to promise me one thing. This might go against the path of chivalry, against your own conscience, and might even force me to do something against my will. What do you say? If I lose, it will be the same. How about it?" These words caused Qi Guanyin's expression to turn serious. He looked at Sun Lang and said seriously, "It will be the same if you lose. Anything?" Sun Lang nodded without hesitation. "Of course. Anyway, if you make a request that makes it difficult for me, such as wanting to F***ck me, it won't be difficult for me to smash your brains out. Furthermore, I have such a huge advantage. How can I lose?" Qi Guanyin's expression suddenly changed. "You used the Imperial Army?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "No. The great general was from a family of generals." After thinking about it for a while, he realized that with the tight security of Hongsheng, even if there were spies working together, they would not be able to let anyone pass. After thinking about it again and again, he felt that this was a safe bet. He gritted his teeth and nodded. "I'll bet. Let's see what tricks you can play." Sun Lang revealed a warm smile and high-fived Qi Guanyin. The two left the base of the wall and walked on the deserted street, heading towards Marquis Jing'an-fu. Mingzhou, Qi Guanyin looked at the capital of the north that he would visit a few times every year. Everything was the same as in his memory. Everyone was living their lives according to routine. It was hard to imagine that a few days ago, a great battle that could shake up the political situation had occurred here. He thought of something. After all, he knew very little about what happened that night. Because he had many things on his mind, he did not have the chance to ask Sun Lang in detail. You also participated in the Battle of the Black Armor, entering Mingzhou? Sun Lang nodded indifferently. This year's Black Armor army is not up to par. I helped Tensei province reduce its troops. Qi Guanyin sighed. What a pity. Heroes and warriors, elites of the country, actually died here. Sun Lang suddenly snorted. They're only chess pieces in the hands of the conspirators. They follow their master's will to fight, and they also follow their master's will to die. No matter how pitiful, this is their fate. If you feel that it is unfair for those soldiers and feel that their deaths are not worth it, then just raise the banner and attack the main culprit this time. What are you blabbering about here for? Anyone can say that. What crocodile tears? What use is there in crying? Qi Guanyin was ridiculed for no reason. He had a good temper and was intimidated by Sun Lang's abuse of power. He also had a request for this person, so he subconsciously thought that this person speaks like this to convince himself. As a result, he did not get angry. Instead, he asked in confusion, "How did I provoke you again?" Sun Lang snorted and did not say anything else. Instead, he quickened his steps. They walked energetically towards the direction of Marquis Jinggan Fu. Since the two did not speak, they walked quickly. Very quickly, they saw the large vermilion door of the Marquis Fu. The gatekeeper had sharp eyes and saw Sun Lang walking over at first glance. He shouted in surprise, "Quickly open the door. Sir Sun has returned." Qi Guanyin snorted. "You claim to be the son-in-law of the Zhang family, but this Marquis Jinggan Fu also treats you as the eldest son. From that pavilion just now to this gatekeeper now, their tone is filled with intimacy. It seems like they don't treat you as an outsider. What exactly is going on?" Sun Lang proudly said, "I am ashamed. After completing an A+ level mission, my faction intimacy and prestige have increased by quite a bit. I hope that after a few days, I will also be able to receive this treatment in the great general's Fu." He affectionately patted Qi Guanyin's shoulder and said in a sincere tone, "After all, when I saw your wife, I knew that I was definitely going to befriend you." Although Qi Guanyin could not understand the meaning behind his words, he could still detect Sun Lang's ill intentions from his tone and expression. He nonchalantly flung Sun Lang's hand to the side. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard a rumbling sound. A huge metal armor flew out from behind the door and landed in front of the two people. The armor opened, revealing Courier's beautiful and exotic face. Yin Wei joyfully looked at Sun Lang, and then looked at Qi Guanyin beside him. He frowned. "What is going on?" The original plan was not like this. What happened to luring Qi Guanyin into a fight with the third blazing angel? Why did he directly bring him back? Sun Lang smiled. Sometimes a well-planned and closely linked plan has to give in to unexpected events. Many things have happened, so the original plan has to be scrapped. Thank you for your hard work. After he had shaken Qi Guanyin, he had instructed Courier to hurry back to Mingzhou City and set up a defense against the enemy Blazing Angel surprise attack. He did not expect that after a peaceful night, Sun Lang and Qi Guanyin would show up. Sun Lang was an expert in the art of war and knew the principle of avoiding the enemy's main force and attacking their weak points. He could not help but find it strange that the Blazing Angel did not come to attack them. He pondered and said, "Looking at the current situation, attacking Mingzhou was the best choice, but the Blazing Angel did not do it, allowing us to complete the merger without any openings." How strange! Qi Guanyin's heart ached when he thought of this, and his voice turned cold. There must be an even more vicious plan. I think so too. Sun Lang looked at the great general and said meaningfully, "But what could it be?" Qi Guanyin's face was solemn, and he did not answer. Looking at the expressions of the two men, Creel had already guessed most of what had happened. It seemed that after she left last night, a lot of wonderful stories had happened. So much so that Qi Guanyin had inexplicably joined her team. As a woman, her desire to gossip couldn't be stopped. She immediately said, "You have been busy all night. Quickly go in and let the servants boil some hot water. Take a bath, eat something, and rest." "All right." Sun Lang nodded and then said to the gatekeeper who was standing on the other side, "Please call your young lady and stick who to wake up." The gatekeeper smiled and said, "The young lady has already informed them. I'll go and call swordsman who right now. I'll take off my armor first." Courier smiled at Sun Lang and then flew to the back courtyard of the Marquise Fu. Since Sun Lang had already returned, then she did not need to be on guard in her armor at all times. Looking at Blazing Angel's departing figure, Qi Guanyin's eyes flashed. He snorted at Sun Lang. "The way this foreign woman looks at you is also not right. She said something about using the Zhang family's connections to build a bridge. I'm afraid it's not just that. I was wondering why Courier would suddenly turn against her and follow you blindly, the powerful, handsome, and powerful man of the empire who had always adhered to monogamy stood on the moral high ground and looked down at Sun Lang. He said disdainfully, "Humph, Marquis Jing'an's Fu Miss Zhao. Liu Yin guard Courier. Who else is there? It's just that I pity Miss Zhang." Sun Lang looked at Qi Guanyin with pity in his eyes. The great general said angrily, "What are you looking at? What do you want to say? Why don't you try saying it out loud? Do you believe I'll hack you to death? Do you believe I'll hack you to death? I won't lower myself to your level. AI, pitiful child." Sun Lang sighed. There's a good saying. In ancient times, carriages and horses were very far away, and letters were very slow, so you could only love one person in your life. But you could take many concubines, not to mention now. You're so stupid that you can only recognize 3 holes. Are you blaming me? Qi Guanyin wanted to argue, but suddenly flames spewed out. Another blazing angel flew over and landed on the ground. With an ear-piercing mechanical sound, all the guns and cannons on its body were pointed at the great general. Long Wanda said angrily, "It's you. You actually dare to appear in front of me." Qi Guanyin said stiffly, "I'm limited by my duties. Please forgive me." Long Wanda had achieved success at a young age, and his name had resounded throughout the order. His journey had been smooth sailing, and he had never suffered at the hands of anyone other than Sun Lang. Who would have thought that he would stumble this time? First, he was beaten into a retard by Courier, and then chased by Qi Guanyin. Everything he had learned in his life was completely useless. He was hung up and beaten by Courier's Blazing Angels and Qi Guanyin's army. Such a great humiliation. He swore he wouldn't be human if he didn't take revenge. Seeing Qi Guanyin's lofty expression without any sign of remorse, his anger burned even more fiercely. He said sternly, "When this matter is over, I'll definitely find you for an explanation." Qi Guanyin looked up to the sky and said, "Anytime." Long Wanda glanced at Sun Lang again. Seeing Sun Lang winking at him with his right eye, he understood in his heart and shut his mouth. No matter how unscrupulous he was, he knew that the news of Sun Lang's survival would cause a great upheaval. He couldn't carelessly leak it out. Therefore, he snorted and said to Sun Lang, "Tell me about that so-called third Blazing Angel later. I'll go take off my armor first." And so, the two of them watched as the lone wanderer flew toward the backyard of the Marquis mansion. How interesting, 2 openings in a row. Qi Guanyin sneered and said, "We." As soon as he said this, a thunderous shout rang out. "Qi Guanyin, you're finally willing to come." A figure rushed over from the distance and landed on the ground. It was surprisingly Stick-Hu. He grabbed Qi Guanyin's hand with a cold expression and said with a cold smile, "Just in time, there's someone who wants to see you very much." Chapter 470. Hu Shouxin's hand was like an iron clamp, tightly gripping Qi Guanyin's wrist. It was as if he was afraid that Qi Guanyin would run away. Qi Guanyin didn't struggle. He thought for a moment and knew the answer. He smiled bitterly. "It's Lu Mingzhou, right? Speaking of which, I should apologize to him." Hu Shouxin was slightly startled. He looked the general up and down a few times. He instinctively felt that Qi Guanyin's current state was very strange. After a few seconds of confusion, he asked in bewilderment, "Did something happen to your wife?" Sun Lang was shocked. Some kind of mutual sensing radar between pitiful men who only dared to marry one wife has taken effect just like that. There's actually this kind of radio wave sensing. Unfortunately, the two good men of the Empire ignored this guy at the same time. They looked at each other speechlessly. Qi Guanyin let out a long sigh. There were thousands of words to say, but they were all conveyed in silence. Hu Shouxin's expression slowly turned serious. He let go of Qi Guanyin's wrist and patted him on the shoulder. Like a big brother in society, he said firmly, "Don't worry, I'll take care of this matter." Sun Lang was shocked again. How terrifying. Two men who don't like each other immediately made an unreasonable friends deal when they meet again. This is the inside story. Are you done yet? Hu Shouxin rolled his eyes and said, "Go in and change your clothes first, take a shower, and have a rest. Miss Xiao is almost done washing up. She misses you very much. Leave this to me. I'll ask what happened first, and then we'll discuss it later." Sun Lang laughed and waved at Qi Guanyin. "I'm going to visit my daughter. Sex. Friends. People. Friends." The corner of Qi Guanyin's eye twitched. If it wasn't for the fact that I can't beat him, if it wasn't for the fact that I can't beat him, if it wasn't for the fact that I can't beat him, Hu Shouxin looked at Sun Lang's bouncing figure that disappeared through the door and laughed. Although this little brat has a cheap mouth, he's still very reliable. You'll get used to it. Originally, Old Hu did not like Qi Guanyin very much. This was probably a common problem with the northern faction. When they were under Sun Lang's command, under the subtle influence and leadership of their commander-in-chief, they were loyal to their superiors and subordinates. Among the major military regions during the Empire's wartime, they were not only the most honest and efficient, but also had the most military achievements. In the war against the Sky Demon, they maintained a shockingly high winning rate and exchange ratio. Because of this, Sun Lang was recognized by the foreign reactionary forces as the #1 military achievement of World War II. It must be known that if one was only honest, efficient, and righteous, they might be scorned by other people who went with the flow and regarded as a hothead and a hypocrite. However, if one maintained such a righteous atmosphere and way of doing things and achieved remarkable results, then most of the people around them would slowly change their opinions. Even if they still did not like you, they would have to admit your abilities and express their admiration for you. Therefore, the situation in the northern theater of operations was widely spread among the entire army of the Empire. It was beyond the scope of a legend and was almost like a myth. Not only were their allies extremely envious, but they were also very proud. After all, most people were not born bad guys. If they could gain both fame and fortune in an upright manner, why would they do such a despicable thing? Because of this reason, Hu Shouxin, who had always been upright, was naturally very displeased with Qi Guanyin, who was good at currying favor and being smooth and slick in dealing with people. If Qi Guanyin was an ignorant and incompetent scoundrel, it would be fine. However, Qi Guanyin happened to be a talented and outstanding general of the imperial court. Why would he do such a despicable thing? Every time Hu Shouxin thought of this, he felt that it was a pity and felt very angry. This time, when Sun Lang proposed to recruit this guy, Hu Shouxin also did not agree. However, he was temporarily convinced by Sun Lang's reasons and was prepared to observe the situation. Unexpectedly, things took a turn for the better last night. Courier, who rushed back in the middle of the night, brought back important news. According to this old woman Li Huiyang, there was actually an inside story about Qi Guanyin's joining of Tensei province. If it was an inside story, it meant that Qi Guanyin could be cleared. As long as there was an appropriate recollection, no matter how big of a mistake he made in the past, he could overlook it as if nothing had happened, and everyone would pretend that nothing had happened. Thinking of this, Hu Shouxin felt that Qi Guanyin seemed to be able to be saved. When he saw Qi Guanyin's face today, as if his wife had run away with someone else. Anyway, that was what it meant. As an honest man who loved and respected his wife deeply, Hu Shouxin immediately understood Qi Guanyin's expression. There must be some kind of problem in his family life. Therefore, for the sake of justice and justice, he was determined to get involved in this matter. Qi Guanyin did not know Hu Shouxin's complicated thoughts. He seemed to be very grateful. He held Hu Shouxin's hand and said apologetically, "I did not do anything right. Brother, I am very grateful that you can let bygones be bygones and reach out to save me." Hu Shouxin sighed and said, "Who doesn't have problems in their family? We are all men and should help each other. After all, this is life." The two good men sighed in private for a while. Qi Guanyin suddenly thought of something and asked, "May I ask, brother, who? Who is this Sun Lang? I am ignorant and inexperienced." I didn't know there was such a person in the empire. Hu Shouxin was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, "He hasn't told you yet? Then he must have other plans. I don't dare to overstep my boundaries in case this kid takes revenge on me." TSK. Thinking about how his biggest weakness was now in Sun Lang's hands, and how he had to show it from time to time, he felt an incomparable pain in his balls. He really regretted it. He really shouldn't have acted so pretentious that night. Jatai's old heart was full of regret. He then changed the topic and said, "So, Brother Qi, what happened?" Qi Guanyin was also a smooth and slick person. Seeing that old Hu wasn't willing to say, he didn't ask anymore. Hearing this, he immediately thought of his ill-fated relationship with his wife. He sighed and said sadly, "My wife?" Old Hu quivered and almost jumped up. After the shock, he became angry and said, "He actually told you?" Qi Guanyin blinked and said, "Ah, what did he say?" "No, nothing." Old Hu lowered his eyebrows and said, "You can continue." While the two men were talking about emotional issues, Sun Lang had already skipped through the gate like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He jumped all the way to the front hall's parlor. Before he even entered, he let out a Barba-like laugh. "Uh-huh, my harem. Did you think of me when you were dreaming? Have you prepared food, bathwater, and yourselves?" But the expected chattering did not appear. Instead, there was a violent coughing sound from behind the screen. Sun Lang frowned and reached out with his hand. The huge screen floated into the air and landed to one side, revealing a dignified-looking official with a long beard that reached down to his abdomen. At this moment, this man, who was obviously a high-ranking official, was coughing violently in horror. His eyes were full of shock and fear. When he finally suppressed his coughing, his voice was distorted due to fear as he said in a sobbing tone, "Harem, harem." Sun Lang rolled his eyes and said, "Who are you?" This official was clearly Lu Shouyin, the governor of Ming Province. Previously, he had relied on various clues and cleverly pieced together a shocking big booty. He immediately realized that he was already sitting at the mouth of a volcano. If he did not pick a side quickly, he might not even have the chance to retire and return to his hometown. Hence, he prepared a carriage in the middle of the night and secretly paid a visit to Marquis Jing'an's mansion to ask Hu Shouxin clearly. The two of them talked in secret for the entire night and did not sleep for a moment. Lu Shouyin understood everything that he needed to know and formed an unspoken gentleman's agreement with Hu Shouxin. Since he had heard some things, it meant that he had decided to join them. Lu Shouyin knew this very well. After all, betrayal would be punished. He did not doubt the marshal's ability to carry out his orders. If he decided to kill someone, perhaps no one in the world could stop him. Naturally, they had to agree on 3 rules during this night's secret talk. They had to first agree on their rights and obligations, and they had to find out what the marshal's plans were. After all, everyone was gathered together for the sake of wealth and a win-win situation. How could they bear the burden of a sea of blood and work for the marshal for free? The two of them chatted through the night and expressed their willingness to race as well. Lu Shouyin's worries were temporarily resolved. He began to think about the future with a myriad of thoughts in his mind. On the other hand, Hu Shouxin was pleasantly surprised. In Sun Lang's plan, he did not consider the governor of Ming Province. After all, Hu Shouxin was a military official, and he had always believed that power came from the barrel of a gun. However, it was indeed a good thing that the governor of Ming Province had taken the initiative to join them. The governor of Ming Province did not sleep for the entire night, and he was even more energetic than before. He was clearly excited. When he heard that Sun Lang had returned this morning, he shuddered and his heart thumped wildly. It was like the excitement and anticipation he felt when he climbed into the bed of a young lady in a brothel for the first time, or the uneasiness he felt before the results of the imperial examinations were released. He waited behind the screen in the antechamber, listening to the sound of Sun Lang's footsteps. He was in the midst of brewing his emotions. Should he immediately come out from behind the screen, cup his hands, and bow, and say, "This humble official, Lu Shoyin, has been waiting for the marshal for a long time"? That seemed rather unusual. Or should he let out a resounding laugh and say, "My lord, you've come too late"? That would be too flattering. After all, Lord Lu was a civil official, and his train of thought was more inclined towards the literary side. He decided to recite a poem to express his gloomy lack of success and his ardent desire for a wise master. Once the marshal sensed his mood and talent, he would definitely invite him out to meet him. Then, he would calmly greet him. Wouldn't that be perfect? After making his decision, Lord Lu was about to begin reciting the poem, but before the righteous spirit brewing in his chest could even disperse, he heard the marshal's shocking cry, "My harem! Ha harem!" The righteous spirit choked his lungs and turned into heart-wrenching coughs. Lu Shoyin suddenly felt as if he had been struck by lightning. It was as if he had met a hero outside the novice village and had decided to team up with him to kill the Demon King, only to discover that not only did this guy not plan to kill the Demon King, he even planned to collude with the Demon King to kill the king, enslave the kingdom's citizens, establish a country to serve, and divide all the princesses and noblewomen with the Demon King. Harem, it's actually a harem. He actually wants to rebel. He even used the term harem. Is there a mistake? Logically speaking, politics was all about taking sides. Hugging someone's thigh wasn't something shameful. Moreover, this was that legendary person. Being under his tutelage wasn't something shameful at all. Instead, it was a great honor. But, damn it, he didn't say that he wanted to rebel back then. This was a completely different matter. Ming Province's magistrate Lu Shoyin was forced into a predicament. Oh no, it's over. I wanted to pay him a visit as soon as possible, but I didn't expect to stumble upon his wild ambitions. I'm afraid this matter won't end well. What should I do? I'll be silenced. With his martial arts, I'm afraid he can take my life in a few moves. What should I do? However, the political struggles he had experienced over the years had undoubtedly provided him with a wealth of life experience and skills. He quickly thought of a solution, as expected of the magistrate of a province, who knew how many storms he had weathered. After he recovered from his shock, he immediately concealed his shock and cupped his hands. Eldest, young master, harem is a term used by the imperial family. There are no outsiders here. It's fine if you make fun of me in private, but if others hear you, I'm afraid there will be misunderstandings. I'll give him a way out first and calm him down for the time being. We'll talk about other things later. Sun Lang waved his hand. This matter doesn't matter. So who are you? Only then did Lu Shoyin remember that he had forgotten to introduce himself. He solemnly bowed and said, "I am Ming Province's magistrate, Lu Shoyin. Greetings, young master." A light flashed through Sun Lang's eyes. He said playfully, "I am." Lu Shoyin lowered his head even more. "Yes." Sun Lang's tone was emotionless, making it impossible for others to guess what he was thinking. "How did you know?" Lu Shoyin's heart tightened. He knew that this matter had reached the most critical point. If he gave a bad answer, it would not be strange for the marshal to raise his hand and smash his skull to pieces. Thus, he pulled himself together and began to talk about everything, no matter how big or small. He started from the night Xianjia entered Mingzhou. These days, the movements of various parties, bits and pieces of information, and all the suspicious details and problems converged together to form a huge black curtain. Yesterday, the servants of the general's residence came to complain and became the finishing touch of everything, drawing out the terrifying truth. He spoke in great detail, and Sun Lang listened patiently. In the end, Lu Shoyin glanced at Sun Lang again and said respectfully, "Thus, I came to this conclusion. Only this can explain all the problems. Why is the imperial court so calm? Why is Tensei province silent? Why is Qi Guanyin holding back his troops? Why is the black armored army completely wiped out? Why is Hu Shoshin not worried at all? This is the only explanation. Sun Lang glanced at him, calculating how likely it was that this fellow had been instigated by Tensei province to come undercover and pretend to be a traitor. After a while, he nodded noncommittally. Smart man. We welcome any comrade who is helpful to our revolutionary cause. Lu Shoyin knew that this was just a formality, so he relaxed. If Sun Lang had been incomparably warm to him at the beginning, he would have considered running away. Sun Lang waved his hand. We can talk about other things later. Let's solve the current problem first. Qi Guanyin is outside. You also want to see him very much. Chapter 471. Qi Guanyin is outside. You want to see him as well, right? When Lu Shoyin heard this, a hint of killing intent flashed across his face. He did not just want to see Qi Guanyin, he wanted to eat Qi Guanyin's flesh and skin him alive. The past few days are the most helpless days of Lu Zhou's life. Chaos had broken out under his rule. The meritorious official of Tian Yuan, Hu Shoshin, had openly fought with Tensei province's black armored army in the city. The black armored army was drenched in blood, and their corpses were strewn across the streets. Hu Shoshin had activated the Imperial Army's Thunderbow and wanted to King explode. Dark clouds loomed over the city, and lightning flashed. It was terrifying. In this moment of crisis, the Imperial Court said nothing. His Majesty did not give any guidance, and Qi Guanyin, who was responsible for guarding the land and pacifying the nation, did not move. He did not even pay attention to the request for help, leaving the prefecture overseer helplessly hiding in the city of Mingzhou. He was frightened, unable to see tomorrow clearly, and did not care about the future. He was afraid that Hu Shoshin's head would cramp, and he would take Lord Lu's head as a sacrifice. In such a complicated situation, if you still hoped that Lord Lu would have a good impression of Qi Guanyin, it would be a bit too much. Hence, when Lu Shoyin heard this, his eyes were about to spit fire. Anger rose from his heart, and he sneered, I've been waiting for him for a long time. The key to managing personnel was checks and balances. Lu Shoyin was Ming Province's governor, and Qi Guanyin was Ming Province's great general. Both of them would be working under Sun Lang in the future. Regulating the relationship between the two of them was indeed a difficult task. If they were too close, they would lose their principles, and some things that should not be allowed to happen would develop. However, if they were too hostile, it would lower their efficiency and cause some inexplicable restrictions. Sun Lang gave it some thought and decided to mediate the relationship between the two of them. Lu Shoyin was filled with resentment, and he had to resolve this knot in his heart. He patted Lu Shoyin's shoulder and said gently, Qi Guanyin holds great power over Ming Province's military. He's one of the people we have to win over. You're in charge of the civil and military affairs of the province. It's not good to make things too tense. He had his own difficulties when he stood by and did nothing. Don't blame him too much. Lord Lu's heart trembled. I almost forgot that the marshal is also a military official. As a civil official, it's not good for me to be so overbearing. Why should I act in a moment of anger and leave a bad impression on the marshal? He immediately reflected on his actions, then bowed and said, Young master is right. This official understands. Sun Lang smiled and said, Right? We're all big men. Isn't it wonderful to be a little more tolerant and let this world have a little more warmth? After all, Qi Guanyin encountered such a thing. Lu Shoyin's expression changed as he asked, What is it? The marshal sighed and said regretfully, His wife ran away with someone else. Lu Shoyin's mouth was wide open, as if he was shocked by this news. He couldn't make sound for a long time. After a long time, he muttered, There's actually such a thing. Yes, and his wife has been scheming against him. His wife's heart is like a knife, a knife. Sun Lang sighed and said, I'm telling you this in advance so that you won't be unprepared when you suddenly hear about it later and cause him a second injury. Now you understand. As a man, after he has encountered such a tragedy, we have to give him enough humanitarian care. Don't you think so? In this case, Lu Xiaoyan would not only sympathize with Qi Guanyin from a man's point of view, but he would also secretly feel happy and feel a sense of superiority. Seeing that you, Qi Guanyin, are so shameful, I won't haggle with you about what happened before. This is simply too much. Unexpectedly, Lu Xiaoyan was silent for a long time. Suddenly, his eyes widened and he became angry and indignant. How can this be? This official has heard about Qi Guanyin's family affairs. In Mingzhou's officialdom, he is famous for being afraid of his wife. He doesn't take concubines, doesn't go to brothels, and even when he attends banquets, he doesn't even look at the dancers and maids. At home, he is even more submissive and soft to the bone. For a time, he was a joke in the officialdom. His saliva flew everywhere, and he became more and more agitated as he spoke. How can there be such a cowardly general? Although we think he is cowardly, our wives admire him very much. For example, my wife always talks in my ear, saying that if this official was half as caring as General Qi, even if she died immediately, it would be worth it. Actually, although we joke about him, in our hearts, we admire such a person. With such a high position, he only marries one person, doesn't take concubines, doesn't keep concubines, and doesn't even look at other women. At this point, his beard was dancing in the wind. Lord Lu seemed to be extremely agitated. He said loudly, "Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? The wife of a man who would give his heart and soul to his wife would actually run away with another man? This is simply intolerable. This is intolerable." Sun Lang sweated. "Why are you more agitated than I thought?" "Young master, although there's already a grudge between Qi Guanyin and I, public is public, private is private. Even Buddha can't tolerate this. This is simply outrageous." Lu Xiaoyan said angrily, "Sir, you're not part of the bureaucracy of Mingzhou, so you don't know how much the various anecdotes of General Qi and his wife have been talked about with great relish. Although everyone is making fun of him, they all admire Qi Guanyin's sacrifice and dedication. If they knew about this, they'd probably fly into a rage." Sun Lang nodded. I understand. Back then, when Baoqiang had that incident, everyone was also in an uproar. It's just that I feel the same way." Lu Xiaoyan was puzzled. "Who is Baoqiang?" Sun Lang waved his hand. "Someone I knew a long time ago. Now that I don't see him, I miss him a little." Lu Xiaoyan sensibly stopped asking. Obviously, he must have misunderstood something. However, no matter what, Lu Xiaoyan, who was shocked by this incident, had a great sympathy and indignation for Qi Guanyin, which was really unexpected. However, it was enough to temporarily dispel Lu Xiaoyan's hostility and dissatisfaction. Sun Lang reminded Lord Lu to not expose his identity, and then sent him outside to meet with Qi Guanyin. He himself entered the main corridor from the front hall. He hadn't taken a few steps when he heard light footsteps and a bell-like laughter from afar. "Sun Lang, you're back." For some reason, Sun Lang's heart skipped a beat. This feeling of waiting for someone was actually not bad. Eldest Miss Zhao was currently surrounding Sun Lang, chattering away and asking him all sorts of questions. After a while, Zhang Yinluo and Kirill also rushed over. Yinluo looked Sun Lang up and down a few times, then suddenly walked forward. He stretched out his hand and touched the pocket of Sun Lang's windbreaker a few times. He revealed an expression of as expected and said coldly, "Who is it this time?" Sun Lang said proudly, "Of course it's Qi Guanyin's elite soldiers." Zhang Yinluo looked up at the sky and sighed. "General Qi actually didn't chop you to death." Sun Lang gave him a thumbs up and said straightforwardly, "How is that possible? He can't beat me." On the other side, Hu Shouxin, Qi Guanyin, and Lu Xiaoyan were holding a meeting. Long Wanda, who had also taken off his armor, also went over to listen for some reason. And on this side, Sun Lang also organized a small harem meeting to discuss last night's matter. After all, Luo aside, Lady Zhao was able to control Marquis Jinggan Fu at such a young age. Her intelligence was outstanding and her methods were seasoned. Courier was also young and promoted a flame guard with his own strength. None of them were easy to deal with. With them advising at the side, they could find loopholes and fill in the gaps. Hey, are you thinking of something rude? Luo glared. Sun Lang did not say anything. Courier and Zhao Fei Huang, who had tacitly formed a united front in some sense, began to add salt to the wound. Lady Mao said indifferently, "You only need to stick out your chest and be a pleasing vase." Zhao Fei Huang also chuckled. "Don't feel inferior. Even if you are mentally retarded, Sun Lang will still like you. Give me something more like that." After messing around for a while, in a side hall, everyone sat down. Sun Lang recounted the events of last night from beginning to end. It had to be said that this kind of emotional drama involving family ethics was indeed very popular with the girls. The young girls listened with great interest. Even Su Qingwan, who was in charge of the guards, pricked up her ears. Everyone's small cherry lips went from tightly pursed to slightly open. They looked like they had received a great shock. With their clothes, it was obvious that they had not been tormented by Qiong Yao. After listening to the story, the girls breathed a sigh of relief and began to express their own opinions. Because of their personalities, everyone's focus was obviously very different. Zhang Luo praised. "General Qi is indeed a good man who is affectionate and righteous." After saying that, he glanced at Sun Lang without batting an eyelid. Before Sun Lang said anything, Courier disagreed. Lady Mao looked at Luo disdainfully. "I haven't seen you for a few years, but your brain is still full of milk. Affectionate and righteous? Bah, don't make people laugh." Zhang Luo said angrily. "You muscular women are talking nonsense again. This is the Hutu Empire, not your tribe. Don't judge us with your point of view." Courier laughed. "What's the difference between your empire and our tribe? Isn't it the same law of the jungle, where the strong prey on the weak? It's just that your empire is strong and powerful, so you start to pay attention to your table manners. On the surface, you don't look so bad. That's all. If this Qi Guanyin is a useless and lowly man, or if his wife is a princess or the daughter of an important official in the imperial court, it's fine. But he's neither. As a general of a province, he has outstanding military achievements and a respected status, but he's controlled by his wife. Not to mention other things, they've been married for more than 10 years, and he's still only *king the same woman. Doesn't he get tired of it?" She glanced at Zhang Luo and said lightly, "Don't be dissatisfied. From my experience, if a man with a high status doesn't even dare to cheat, let alone take a concubine, then how can he have the desire and courage to make progress in his career? If he can be suppressed by his wife in this aspect, then he will be suppressed and restrained by his wife in other aspects, either openly or secretly." Zhang Luo said angrily, "These are two different things." This time, he had fallen into the trap. Courier said leisurely, "How are they two different things? Isn't Qi Guanyin a ready-made example? From the beginning to the end, he was just a toy in the hands of that woman. After he found out the truth, he didn't kill her directly to avenge his humiliation. Instead, he let her go. Now, his attitude is ambiguous, and he can't be cruel. He's so weak that he can't even be compared to a woman. He deserves it." Mao Mei and Luo quarreled, but Miss Zhao looked at the problem from a unique perspective. She didn't judge Qi Guanyin's character, but looked at Sun Lang and said affectionately, "Sun Lang, I'm much better than that vicious woman. I'll definitely treat you well. If you like any girl, I'll go and propose marriage for you. If she doesn't agree, I'll find someone to drug her and send her to your bed." When Courier heard this, he turned around and praised, "This is what a noble woman of the empire should be like. She has a sense of propriety, knows when to advance and retreat, and knows what she should do." When I first saw this woman in my country, I was shocked. How did the Huda Empire raise such a stupid woman? Zhao Fei Huang said with a smile, "I've shown you a joke. There's so many people in our country. It's not surprising that 1 out of 10,000 people has a problem in the head. This sounded a bit wrong. Zhang Yinluo pointed at Sun Lang, who had a mysterious smile on his face that said, how nice is the feudal society, and shouted, hey, how much do you want to spoil him? Zhao Feihuang rolled his eyes and said, you still have a face to say that? You don't know how lucky you are. If I had a body like yours, I wouldn't need to waste so much effort. Sun Lang would be dead set on me. Zhang Yinluo's face suddenly turned red, and then he shouted, this kind of thing is innate. It's not like I want it. It's my fault. Look, you're showing this kind of expression again. You're all so unreasonable. You, master and senior sister, I don't want to grow so big. It's very inconvenient. Why do you all stare at me with this kind of expression every time I complain? Courier didn't know about Sun Lang's great strength and Yinluo's miraculous body, but he still said seriously, I don't know why, but looking at her right now, she really deserves a beating. Seeing that Yinluo was about to explode, Sun Lang ended the topic at the right time and snapped his fingers. All right, let's get back to the main topic. Now that the situation is chaotic, we have to confirm our goal and the obstacles to achieving it. The goal is to instigate Qi Guanyin and persuade him to join our team so that we can obtain military power in Ming Province. And the obstacles are mainly Tensei Province, but in detail, it's more complicated. He took 2 peanuts and 2 teacups from the table. The first peanut, this is his wife. The second peanut, this is the blazing angel. The first teacup, this is Tensei Province behind his wife. The second teacup, this is the blazing angel that will inevitably involve the Lihua Nation. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.